Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Why We Love Doctor Who, Part 17. I'm joined as usual by John the White, Golden Age Geek, and Bull and Jaw. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome. And shall we get a crack on? Because we've got some very large specials to have a look at.
Oh, but welcome, hi, Gobby, hi, everybody. Here we are again. What a fantastic, important, fun stream we're going to have, because we are talking about all things of the Doctor, name of the Doctor, night of the Doctor, day of the Doctor, time of the Doctor, and of course, due warning before we even start, tonight is a completely Moffat zone.
Yes,
where every word and every script we're discussing is direct from the mind of Moffat. So it's interesting, really, because I mean, the 50th was a very important year for Doctor Who fans. Of course, it was.
Absolutely.
And it was all under the control of Stephen Moffat. And whether you love him or you loathe him, he's all over it, and you're stuck with him. At least as far as these episodes go.
Yes, indeed.
So we're going to cast our mind back 10 years in time.
10 years.
Let the screen go wibbly wobbly woo woo.
I've got that effect.
But before we get anywhere near November, we're at the tail end of the second run of episodes of Series 7.
Indeed.
So we have just finished The Nightmare in Silver. And we weren't that impressed with it.
No.
But we were looking forward to something better this week, because suddenly it's all about, are you sure you know the name of the Doctor?
No.
Of course, before we go further, we must, of course, add that we are joined, as per usual, by Golden Age Geek and by Burrajaw, and, of course, by you lovely people in chat. Good afternoon, Sadako.
Yes, good evening.
So let's try and get some reactions. Where were we at when Name of the Doctor popped on the screen? I mean, the first thing I'll say about this story is best Doctor Who intro ever.
It has a very good one. Yes, indeed. It was one of the best ones, wasn't it?
Did the intro land for you, Golden Age Geek?
Well, when I initially watched it, yes. However, there are a few things as we get later on in the episode that when you think about it, I don't think it perfectly lands with me today. But
I was just going to repeat the proviso at the start of the show: Moffat scripts.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, Moffat scripts. Well, I mean, let's describe this intro. So we're opening, and straight away we've got the grand Gallifreyan music playing. We've got Murray Gold bringing us in on a crescendo, and there's the citadel of the Time Lords in front of us, and we swoop towards it, and we go inside a little window in it, and it leads us into a workshop. Actually, no, it's the other way around, isn't it? We start in a workshop, then we pull out.
Yeah, it's a pull out.
I had that mirrored in my mind. No, we're not going in. We're pulling out. We're pulling out, everybody. We start in a workshop with a couple of engineers sort of banging some bits together, and they're discussing a broken machine. And then the punchline is, what idiot would want to steal a TARDIS? And then it pulls out, and we realise that these are Time Lord TARDIS engineers. This is Gallifrey. And not only that, but the Doctor is about to leg it.
Yes.
And then we're treated to a series of short cutscenes showing us Doctor after Doctor after Doctor. The first Doctor in his garden, the second Doctor apparently running across a Californian beach, the third Doctor driving his car, and so forth. The seventh Doctor dangling from his umbrella, and it's just wonderful. It's a fangasm.
Yes, it's
a complete fangasm. But then the episode proper kicks in, and it all starts with a séance.
Mm.
So, Paternoster Gang.
Again, yep.
And Madame Vastra is contacted because there's a murderer who's banged up in Chokey. And he says that he knows the doctor's secret.
No.
And Madame Vastra thinks that this is a pretty serious business. So everyone better get together and have a chat about it. So she uses this exotic soporific to put herself, Jenny, and Strax into a conference call in their dreams. It creates a shared dreamscape that crosses the barriers of time, which means that she can also arrange for a lawyer to hold on to a letter for 100 years, then give it to Clara and tell Clara that she should light the candle inside it to induce the same trance. And then knowing that Clara will go, I'm not doing that, he goes, but just in case you weren't persuaded, it's in the paper.
Of course.
And Clara's also in this conference call, and they're joined by the final attendee, One River Song.
Yes.
So they're having this meeting and they're about to discuss this, but then it all goes horribly wrong and they're attacked. And there's these weird beings with white skull-like faces, and black suits and top hats, and they speak through whispering, through mouth that look like they've got entirely the wrong kind of serrated teeth.
Yes.
Yeah, like they're like shark mouths. And they intrude upon reality and kidnap the group one by one.
Snatch them up.
With the exception of Clara, who's now got to warn the doctor that all of this is going on. And she finds the doctor who's been babysitting.
Lovely.
And the kids told him he'd been wanting to go to the cinema, but he said no. But then they suggested playing Blind Man's Buff. And Clara discovers him searching for the children playing this game, not realising where they are, which is, of course, at the cinema.
Yep.
Which responds to the doctor describing them as those little Daleks.
Little darlings.
No, Daleks.
Yeah.
No, Daleks. The little Daleks, you know. But then things get more serious because Clara relays the information, and the doctor basically has a bit of a funny turn. He has to have a damn sit down.
Yes.
I goes, well, hang on a minute. Well, you said it was what? And you said it was Trenzalot. Oh God! And Clara to understand why is the doctor so upset, and he explains, "Look, I'm a time traveller. There is one place as a time traveller that you never, ever, ever go. Where is that? Your grave." I mean, it seems a pretty good idea, but if you never go to your grave, you're putting off the day that you're going to end up in it. So I can see the doctor thinking like that on that basis alone. But when you've travelled in time as much as the doctor, the resting place of his body in itself represents a space-time event.
It certainly does.
And it's not the secret of the doctor that's been discovered. It's his grave. It's not his secret at Trenzalore. It's where he's buried. So what else can the doctor do? He's got to go.
Got to go. Got to go.
He's got to go.
He's got to go.
The TARDIS sure don't want to go there.
No, the TARDIS doesn't want to play any of this. It doesn't. So
he sets course for Trenzalore, and he's fighting the TARDIS all the way. It's like it is totally resisting him. I am not doing it. Yes, you are. He's furiously pumping the controls, and the rotor is going up and down, and it's all giving it all sorts of grief. And just when you think it's all going to come to some kind of crisis, boom! The Doctor and Clara are thrown back from the time capsule and have to grab onto the railings to save themselves from falling to the floor below. You know, bang! They stop. It's all smoke. Everything's dead. The TARDIS is badjaxed.
Yep.
And the Doctor says, "We've not arrived." He sticks his head out the door. And look, there's Trenzalore below them. They're in orbit over the planet, and the TARDIS has put the brakes on.
Yeah, it's not going any further.
So what does the Doctor do? He takes the brakes off, which forces the TARDIS to plummet precipitously towards the planet's surface at an incredible speed, banging into the surface like the gong from a bell, with the whole of the exterior glowing with the heat and the friction. And he's even gone and put a crack in the window.
Oops.
Cheerful place, this Trenzalore.
Oh, yes, lovely place.
In other words, it's your classic gothy, spooky graveyard.
Absolutely.
With one thing in it that other classic gothy, spooky graveyards do not have. A gigantic TARDIS.
A massive TARDIS.
Because not only is the Doctor buried at Trenzalore, he's buried in the TARDIS. And as the Doctor explains to Clara, as the TARDIS gets old, all the insidey bit starts to end up on the outside more, as they grow big and fat. And as TARDIS is so old and knackered, it's become a giant monument. And okay, we better head up that way. Oops, cut off by some whispermen. Aha! River Song, who Clara can see, but the Doctor can't. Only is that really true? And just where River's ghost suddenly appeared to Clara to tell her, look, oh, there's River's grave, and it's a secret passage.
Of course.
Meanwhile, the Paternoster gang are waking up to be menaced by Dr. Simeon, who is back. Only this time, in no way is he a purely fallible human being. No, he's a direct manifestation of the great intelligence, which has manipulated this entire situation with its own dastardly plan to do the Doctor down once and finally for all. So, as the Doctor and Clara arrives, he finds that his friends surrounded by whispermen being menaced, and Simeon promptly says, either you open that door so we can get into your TARDIS stroke 2, or they all die. And the Doctor will not do it. The Doctor will not do it. Even as a hand is being plunged straight into Strax's chest, although he gamely reassures the Doctor he thinks he got them on the run. Even as Clara is white as a sheet and very scared, the Doctor still will not say it, but suddenly the door opens because the Ghost of River will say it. But what else can they do? They enter the TARDIS. Enter the TARDIS to a ruined, decrepit console room overgrown with the vines of time, in the centre of which is a tree-like glowing of light. And the Doctor announces to everybody that this is the causal nexus of his timeline. At which point Simeon goes, and that's why you're screwed, matey, and promptly jumps into it. And the Doctor is writhing in agony as his every victory is undone, as his every success is made into failure, as his every achievement is turned into defeat. And it's not just the Doctor affected by this, because as Madame Vastra swiftly realises, a universe without the Doctor, there will be consequences. And as she's looking out the window, what does she see? But she sees the stars blinking out in the sky. She turns around to discuss with Jenny, but the Doctor saved Jenny's life, so Jenny no longer exists. And even Strax isn't able to be any reassurance to her, because without the Doctor's influence, he's just another pig-headed fascist Sontaran.
Amen.
Leaving Madame Vastra with no other choice but to disintegrate him on the spot.
Absolutely.
Dead Strax! Dead Jenny! Desperate Vastra. So she runs back into the console room and tells Clara what's been going on. And Clara says, right then, I'm not having this. I've got a plan. What's your plan? I'm going to jump into it too. That's mad! Don't do that! River Song appears and says, for God's sake, do anything, but don't do that! But no, she does it. Clara jumps in, and even as she is unravelled through the Doctor's timeline, a thousand splinters of Clara undo the malign influence of great intelligence and restore the Doctor's original timeline. Except Clara herself is lost in the deepest recesses of that timeline. And the Doctor's not having it. I'm going in after her, he says. You're mad! They have another conversation that goes pretty much the same as the first. Only this time, Liver goes to slap some sense into him, and he catches her hand and says, I can always see you. It just cost me too much pain to talk to you. Which seems quite dodgy to me if you really think about it. But there you are.
It is a bit, yeah.
There you are. And the Doctor jumps into his timeline, and the Doctor, finds Clara at the very, very bottom of his own destiny in time and space, and she's in this strange landscape where ghosts of the Doctor run around her. Ghosts of the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth are all around her. And as she's trying to make sense of this place, she hears her Doctor's voice, our Doctor's voice. I'm sending you something to you, and it's that leaf. Not from my life, but from yours. You blew into the universe on this leaf, and now that you've held it, I can find you and give me a hug. Aha! He found her! And they're going to get the hell out of here. Hang on a minute. Who's that geezer over there? In the distance, there's a dark figure. Who's that? Asked Clara. It's me, said the Doctor. It's only me here. That's the point. I don't remember that one, she said. Well, yeah, we don't talk about him. And as he leads Clara away to transcend back up to his timeline to return to Trenzalore with, and where presumably now Jenny Faster and Strax are all waiting for him. We're left with that question, and this mysterious figure turns and says, "What I did, I did for sense. I did for reason. Yes." But not in the name of the Doctor. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Coming November 2023. The Day of the Doctor. Introducing John Hurt. Yes, that's John Hurt.
Yeah, that run. Yes.
The Doctor. The titles end of episode. Right, so that's basically what happened.
Yeah.
Was it any good though?
Oh, there's a good challenging question.
Let's find out what Burrow has to say.
Well, this is a story that I have quite mixed feelings on, if I'm honest. At the time, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Well, at the time, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Seeing all the doc. So, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Yeah,
crack on.
Okay, good. So I thought there was something. That's what I was saying was at the time, I thought it was great seeing all the Doctors together. And John Hurt, he's one of my favourite actors, actually. I'd say he's really among the top three, along with Tim Curry and Peter Cushing. So, to see him as the Doctor was a dream come true. Looking back on it now, though, it's a bit of a mess in terms of its plot. There's so many plot holes in it, and a lot of it does seem a bit too over kind of melodramatic, if you know what I mean. But overall, I'll say the good. Richard E. Grant is excellent as the Great Intelligence. Well, he's probably like the best.
Let's jump in and out of time streams like it's a paddling pool. That was, that's a bit of a stretch if you stop to think about it. River's all like, oh my god, that's horrible.
Oh yeah. No. That.
It's a breeze.
The biggest plot hole. So I don't mind the odd plot hole, but when it's so big it can't hold together. Like the worst bit is, okay, why the hell was Clara able to beat the Great Intelligence on her own? When she couldn't beat it with the Doctor and all those others, and also how does it work? like when she's splintered. I mean, does she have to fight the Great Intelligence in every single adventure the Doctor's had? Does that mean they're all different now? Was there a Great Intelligence and was there Clara on the TARDIS and the Edge of Destruction? Or what about in Pyramids of Mars in the background? Is there Clara and Great Intelligence? And does she have the memory of him? Like, how is she saving him from the Great Intelligence in Asylum of the Daleks? It's like it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I think a big part. Yeah, I was going to say, Matt Pounder, by the way, has just said, no Dr. Ruth without the War Doctor. Thanks for that, Moffat. And yeah, we need to acknowledge the chain of events that all of this set in motion.
Yes, it did.
I was skipping ahead a little bit.
I think that, yes, I was actually going to.
In Night of the Doctor, which we'll talk about more in a minute, but there is a line in there that does say, what do you need, this or that, man or woman. So that's your first instance where, Moffat is trying to canonise that the Seventh Doctor could have regenerated female if he chose to.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of things which are starting off here. I think we need to have a huge conversation about the War
That's actually
Doctor
another thing.
himself.
Sorry, saying.
But I'm wondering, should we have that conversation now?
Well, that's what I was going to
say. After Day of the Doctor, when, I think now is actually probably quite a good time to talk about it.
Yep, I think so as well.
Because I think one of the things this story left us all with is a great deal of anticipation.
Indeed, it did. Of course, it did.
6 months to go. Oh my god! 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 What? And in the meantime, us not being fed much either. So it was a frenzy of speculation during this time.
It certainly was.
And myself, I ended up disappointed, which I think has been redeemed somewhat, not by the 50s on the whole, but disappointed by the War Doctor.
I can understand why. I quite liked him. I've got my own kind of analysis of him that I'll say when we get to
we're sort of brought to the brink with his character, and then it turns out that none of it was ever justified.
No, I'll give you that. I'll get the end of the War of the Doctor. Sorry, not in the War of the War. At the end of the Name of the Doctor, it's quite a terrifying moment when he says what I did, because you think, oh God, what has he done? It's like, but he didn't do anything. He was just a normal, nice, cuddly teddy bear doctor, if anything.
That a War Doctor would display ruthlessness, whereas before he would try to save everybody, he would have said, well, these casualties are unavoidable because the Daleks have got to be stopped. And you would imagine, right up until the events of Day of the Doctor itself, the War Doctor spent the entire of his regeneration fighting Daleks, not Time Lords, on behalf of Gallifrey. It was only at the end that he's going to go, right, I'm going to get the moment and use it on everybody, because it's the only way to stop this shit. So he must have spent, a century fighting the Time War?
Oh, longer than that, I would have thought.
And that,
at least,
at least a century.
Ruthlessly. But we're not shown that at all. So I kind of felt like it was a big tease that didn't truly deliver. Now I can't speak to what Big Finish did for John Hurt before he passed away, because I'm not consumed any of that content. So maybe chat or one of you could tell me, how they develop the War Doctor's character.
No, I haven't listened to any of the Big Finish, so I'm not au fait with that, so I can't.
I've not listened to the John Hurt stuff. I've listened to other stuff.
We'll stick to dealing what we're dealing with, what we've got shown on screen. So, Golden Age, do you have any input here?
Well, sorry, there's just one last thing that I wanted to say about this episode before we got into the War Doctor.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That I think it's got, I agree that it does set some bad precedents, and I think the twist of having Clara be rewritten into being the hero of every Doctor Who story was perhaps a foreshadowing. That was maybe when the cracks started to appear in terms of the kind of feminist pandering, because they got so much crap over how Doctor Who's sexist because it's a male hero with a female sidekick. There was that prick that did that YouTube video. What was it? Be my Doctor Who girl and follow me around, and it was all that shit. So I think that was Moffat's attempt to maybe he was maybe trying to get round that by, like I was maybe trying to get round having a female doctor at that point before he knew.
I know Jenna Coleman practically had to have protection orders against one or two people.
Wait. So Jenna Coleman had you're kidding? She had a protection order against the guy that did that Doctor Who girl rap.
Oh yes.
Oh, blood! It's always these guys, isn't it? It's always these male feminists. What is it with them? Jesus!
They're the ones with the problem trying to pretend they're not. That's what it is.
Oh, from Joss Whedon to that one, the prick that I can't remember his name, was it Chris Hardwick? Every one of them turns out to be an asshole or a creeper. It's just
sadly, yeah. Sadly,
sorry, but I didn't mean to sidetrack him. I'm just saying.
No. That's
what happened with Clara. That was maybe the beginning of we can't let a male doctor be the hero, which as we know gets worse. That's all I was going to say.
Oh yeah, it's true. Absolutely. So Golden Age.
I mean, I was going to say just before we bring up, we just speak to the whole Clara time stream thing. I mean, it's a Duce Mechanica kind of ending, isn't it? It's a MacGuffin ending. It's a
yeah.
No, it is.
I suppose it gave a payoff to Clara's development from the second part of Series 7.
It is an enjoyable story, by the way. I do just want to make that clear that like Richard, he's got stunning visuals, like with the TARDIS, the Whispermen. Yes. The Paternoster gang are a good laugh in it with Strax. He's got my favourite line.
You couldn't have better talent than Richard E. Grant for that.
With Strax calls Vastra a ridiculous reptile. I just
unhand me, you ridiculous reptile.
she's all bleeding. He's like, unhand me, you ridiculous reptile. Like that. So it's a good episode. It works as entertainment, but when you actually look at the plot, it does begin to fall down a bit. That's what I'd say my analysis of it is, and it sets some bad precedents.
Oh,
so, Golden Age Geek, where are you on this? I mean, specifically on the War Doctor, and try and focus conversation on that. Did this deliver for you?
Well, I liked the idea of the War Doctor. I like the idea that the a regeneration was sort of what's the word? Sort of secluded for the Time War, and it wasn't just another Doctor carrying over. For example, like McGann's Doctor. So I like that. I do agree with what many of you have said about in the 50th, how, we start to see him being very dark and brooding, and he doesn't really speak a lot. His actions speak louder than his words. But then when he meets the other two, he kind of becomes all bubbly and happy, and it kind of takes away from what this Doctor is supposed to be, which is a very different kind of Doctor. He doesn't even call himself the Doctor.
No, he doesn't.
If we forget about David Doctor for a moment, put ourselves back in time. So this episode, Name of the Doctor, has just aired. It's the last thing we saw, right? It's fresh in our minds. What did you feel about the mystery reveal at the end? The dum shocker. I mean, did that hit you? Did that get your mind working? Going, who is this guy? How could he have been so terrible that the Doctor's disowned his own incarnation? Did you get you speculating like that? Did it work for you that way?
Well, truth be told, I'm actually looking at this from a very different perspective, because I didn't actually start watching Doctor Who until 2014. So this was after the.
So you didn't have the time to stew. You just went straight on next episode. Right, fair enough. So that wouldn't apply to you. But I'll ask Burjaw then. I mean, how did you find it fresh out? Were you excited by the concept of this scary Doctor?
Oh yes, definitely.
Were you concerned by it? Where the hell was Moffat doing?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I remember at the time thinking like, I wonder like what horrors from the Time War he took part in. Like, I mean, we know obviously he killed his people, but like to what extent? Like, like now we're going to see kind of the innocents that were caught up, not just the evil Timothy Dalton Rassilon. So yeah, I was really excited from that point of view.
It suggests some kind of genocidal space Hitler, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. But I mean, the thing is, unlike you guys, I'll save this when we get to Day of the Doctor, but unlike the rest of you, I actually did quite like how they ended up portraying him. I think there's quite a clever twist that's actually more true to the Doctor's character and how the War Doctor's story arc ends in Day of the Doctor. But at the same time,
I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be taken wrong here. For curmudgeonly Grandad Doctor John Pertwee, John Hurt is wonderful in Day of the Doctor.
Oh yes, but it's not even just that.
But that's, to me, wasn't the character that was being set up.
Well, no, but in some ways, I think.
I mean, they even end up calling him Grandad, and he's calling Tenant Sandshoes and stuff, isn't he?
I agree, that's kind of silly, but I'm talking more about the end when like he does the right thing. I think that only works if you've been led to believe he might not. So, in hindsight, overall, I think it was a good story arc, actually. But I mean, again, I can understand, and as Sadako has said in the comments, really, at the end of the day, as much as I love John Hurt and I'm glad he was part of it, there was no reason that Paul McGann couldn't have played that Doctor. Honestly, I think Moffat's reasons were weak to,
Sadako, in hindsight, it didn't quite make sense for Eleven to be so horrified, given what he'd done to the Silence in Day of the Moon.
I disagree because the Silence were an invading force, whereas as far as 11 knew, he destroyed a planet full of like babies, children, the civilians. He'd killed how many was it? 2 billion children. So that's a bit more than just killing an invading force,
True. Very, very true.
I'll be honest, I don't get why everyone's so upset about what he did to the Silence. They were evil invaders. I mean, he's done that. Look what he did in Remembrance of the Daleks. He killed, he destroyed their whole planet. That was arguably worse. That was going to their planet and destroying it rather than
This is the entire point the Great Intelligence is making. You deserve this, Doctor. You bastard.
What's quite funny?
You might not agree with us. You might not agree with how we see life. But we've just been trying to get along, do our own thing, and look how many of us you've slaughtered again and again and again and again and again. I mean, it's not the War Doctor of Gallifrey we should worry about, really, is it? It's the other guy.
Yeah,
that's kind of a point that GI is trying to make.
But what's funny about the Great Intelligence in this is that I think I might have said this before. I'm not sure, but in this story, the Great Intelligence is the closest New Who has come to actually writing and presenting and everything the Master from Classic Who. Like all the New Who Masters, apart from Jacoby, have been shit in terms of like they're just not the Master. They're either the Joker or they're the Joker in River Song like Missy, but this Master, and it's so funny because Stephen Moffat like famously hated the Master because he said he couldn't do anything interesting with him, and that's why he completely rewrote him for Missy. But here it's like it shows you actually if he just tried, like I think the Great Intelligence in this story, I think Richard E. Grant should have played the Master, and this should have been a Master Doctor showdown because it would make far more sense with his character than it would with the. Why is the Great Intelligence hate him so much? He's fought him like 3 times, whereas the Master,
yeah, all the time, yeah.
I suppose it's like the Great Intelligence gets miffed because everywhere he looks, he sees the consequences of the Doctor, and he just feels really, really insecure. It seems to be it, doesn't it?
It'd be better if it was the Master, and I know the Master's like a coward, but he has been willing to kill himself to get the Doctor, like in Survival, so that could still work. And plus, as he's a Time Lord, he would be the one that would know about their time streams.
I could never see the Master jumping into the Doctor's time stream.
Well, if he could rewrite it and control the universe, then yeah, I think he could.
He would. He would. Well, he's the Master, isn't it?
Yeah.
Particularly So, is it hot yet? No. It's hot.
I mean, there might be some rewriting. Obviously, his powers, would have to be a bit different. But overall, like, that's the basis. And Richard E. Grant's the type of actor who should play the Master. Like, and the way he plays that's very, like, the kind of more understated, but really, like, hateful quality.
Let's not forget Richard E. Grant is the Shackler Doctor.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I'm rather fond of Scream of the Shackler, but where it's very uncanny. Okay, so I think we've had a reasonable chat about the War Doctor. I mean, I can see how you set up a powerful idea, and then within the format of a show that has to be watched by children, you've made yourself a bit of a problem. And it's also worth saying that, I mean, I've said that all of these stories are written by Stephen Moffat, but within fandom, there's actually a lot of rumours around the writing of this, and that Moffat had a lot of help getting it done because he was struggling with the Day of the Doctor script. I don't know what's true or not.
I've never heard that.
I've heard quite a few rumours suggesting that, but I've never been able to verify any of it.
Did they say who? Sorry to interrupt. Did they say who may have actually written the name of the Doctor?
No, I don't have a name. I don't have a name, but there is still a suggestion that Moffat was Sherlock and everything else. It wasn't all him. Who knows? I don't know.
It seems like him though. That's the only thing. It does seem very Stephen Moffat. Someone pointed out that all three of Stephen Moffat's finales for Matt Smith take place in an alternate version of events that gets erased, which is true. The Big Bang is in that new timeline with no stars. The Wedding River Song is in, the time, and this timeline gets erased. Obviously the Doctor doesn't die, so it seems like he just reused the same kind of idea 3 times.
Well, it's the undoing things to protect the underlying formula. It when you do it 3 times in a row, it does start to stand out. Yes. So, are we ready to approach a score for Name of the Doctor?
Yeah.
So, have we got anything we haven't said about this that we need to bring out?
No. I think it's pretty. I think we've pretty much covered it quite.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have a venture on this. I think it's certainly a bold story, and it's a risk-taking story. But I think we've discussed why it doesn't quite land, because it doesn't do to think about it too much, which isn't the mark of good writing, I'm afraid.
No.
So I'm going to go with a B- for Name.
Interesting. I will go for a B.
Straight B from copy.
Straight B. It's a typical Moffat story, sort of the way he does it, the way he always does it. It's lots of things, but not much substance. But a B. I enjoyed it when I watched it. I enjoyed it.
It's not disagreeable to rewatch.
No. I mean, you can rewatch it. The problem is,
it's more rewatchable than some of the other stuff. It's more rewatchable than Nightmare in Silver.
True. The only problem is, the more I rewatch it, the more I find wrong with it. So,
true.
So it's one of those ones. I like to rewatch it, but I'm sort of.
I could rewatch it if I wanted to.
Yes. Well, the problem is the more I watch it, the more I go, "Oh, really? That's really bad."
So, what about you? What about you two? What are you going to settle on for Name of the Doctor? Burn-Jaw, what's your score?
Well, I agree with you, John. I'm going to give it a B-. It is an enjoyable story. As I said, some stunning visuals, great performances from everyone. I said Richard E. Grant is probably the best, like, kind of, I don't want to say human, but like, kind of individual bad guy they've had in New Who. He's so much better than Madame Kavarian, who's lame, than any of the Masters, or even Rassilon, who didn't do much. So yeah, all that stuff's good. Some nice cameos, but I mean, as we've all pointed out, story is very flawed, and it did set some bad precedents. So it's not quite, a classic, but it's a good story. B minus.
Well, it's Moffat with the fairy tale ending, not the science fiction ending, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
I think that's ultimately the nature.
Yeah, it's a bit too fantasy the way there's ghosts of the Doctors running around in the timeline. What the hell, you know?
Ooh,
and also, like, they're not supposed to be dead, the previous Doctors. They just become the new Doctor. So it's like, I don't even know what that's meant to be, really.
Yeah. You see, the more we're talking about it, the more we're finding wrong with it.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry, I've gone down a rabbit hole again.
Golden Age Key, where do you stand on it? Name of the Doctor.
Well, I think you two read my mind because I, instantly thought of B minus as well, because it isn't offensively bad. Like, I would definitely, rewatch it. I wouldn't be disappointed if, if someone forced me to watch this episode, I wouldn't, think that I'm going to go into hell. I'd, enjoy it quite a bit. But yeah, there are definitely some problems. I do hate the overemphasis on Clara and how she is made to be the most important thing ever. And also, one thing that I just thought of now, which does kind of put this episode a little bit lower for me, is that, as we talked about with our Series 6 stream, I was actually quite fond of the Doctor's wife, and I liked the scenes with the Doctor and the TARDIS finally being able to communicate in a way which they can both understand each other. And one of the main points that episode made is that it wasn't just the Doctor who stole the TARDIS in a way stole the Doctor. But with this at the end, where Clara is the one who directs the Doctor to the TARDIS, it takes away from that. So that kind of bothers me a bit.
Well, it's Clara as Dr. TARDIS matchmaker, isn't it?
Yeah, see, we're pulling holes in it. If we keep going on this, we'll really not like it in about an hour's time.
we could do
B minus. We're B minus all round, apart from I mean, I think we are pretty united on this. And as the conclusion of Name of the Doctor states, Doctor Who will return on November the 23rd. So there we were, twiddling our thumbs, wishing for some other way, because there's nothing more important than the Doctor Who special to a Doctor Who fan in the 50th anniversary. Until finally, November 23rd, home interview. And first we got a rather splendid 3D advertisement.
Yes,
because the Name of the Doctor was also going to be shown in 3D in selected cinemas. So that was promoting that, and that did look fantastic. And then just before the Day of the Doctor dropped, we got a little entree just to set us up for it, called The Night of the Doctor. Available right now on YouTube.
It is indeed.
It's only 6.5 minutes long. So this is a mini-sode. But we open with a spaceship in trouble. And all the wrong things are happening in this console room. It's not looking good. Yeah. And then just as this lady trying to fly this spaceship is in the desperate straits, we hear a voice behind her. And it says, "It's the Doctor. Just maybe not the one you're expecting. It's the 7th Doctor. It's the 8th Doctor. It's Paul McGann." I almost said 7th Doctor there, didn't I? Bad job. 8th Doctor. There's the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann, and we've not seen him since 1997. After 16 years, he's back. This was 10 years ago, didn't we? We're going to find out what this is all about. So we've got this crashing spaceship. And at first, the Doctor takes the young lady, whose name I believe is Cass, takes her by the hand in the way the Doctor does. And you know that he's going to do the whole "I'm going to take you to my spaceship and save you" routine. But as he opens the door and reveals his spaceship in front of her and reassures Cass that it's bigger than the inside, her face isn't filled with wonder and hope. Oh no, it's filled with horror, dread, and disgust. "That's a TARDIS," she says, pointing at it in contempt. "Yes, time for interdimensional space. You're one of them." She looks accusatory at the Doctor. "You're one of the Time Lords." "I'm not with the war. I never was. Screw your rescue. She deadlocks the door. You're screwed, mate. I ain't going nowhere with you. I'd rather crash and die. And that's exactly what happens. And next thing we see, this spaceship go boom, piling into the surface of a red, dusty planet, being watched by a red, cloaked figure. And those of us with memories stretching to 1976 might already have some idea of where this place actually is. Shortly to be confirmed in the next scene, where the Doctor is awoken by a collection of the Sisterhood of Khan. Dun, dun, dun. Last scene, in the brain of Morbius, the Sisterhood of Khan are a reclusive cult that protects the secret of the elixir of eternal life, provided that their society itself never, ever changes. So as the Doctor described it, the perfection of ultimate boredom. But there's a conversation. The conversation starts. You're not alive. You've got 4 minutes. We've just brought you back briefly.
Yes.
So the Doctor starts off by being informed he did in fact die in that crash.
Yes.
But the Doctor complains, about 4 minutes. It's a huge amount of time. I might get bored. I read a book and so forth. Might need to play a game of chess. Yeah, which gets him a withering look of contempt that he can be such a flattering fool, while apparently being so powerful and wise. As she says, look, mate, this war, right, it's devastating everything. The war between your people, the Time Lords, and the Daleks. The entire universe is getting trashed. And you have stayed out of it for too long, pretending like it's nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And here you are, dead. So it's your choice. You can leave it like this and die and mean nothing, or you can come back and fight and make a difference for all the people getting screwed over by your lot's war.
Yep.
To which they bring in the body of Cass. And the Doctor points out, that he would have done anything for her, but she hated his guts. And this finally persuades him that, he owes it to her to stop this madness. So the Sisterhood say, our science, well, they're potions, our hocus pocus could do stuff Time Lord stuff can't. So regeneration does not have to be random. So what do you want? What do you need? Do you need to be this? Do you need to be that? Do you need to be a man? Do you need to be a woman? Do you need to be a warrior? And the Doctor says, make me a warrior. This universe doesn't seem to need doctors anymore.
Yeah.
And she hands him the chalice and he asks her, will this hurt? Yes, she answers. Good, he says, and downs it in one gulp. And he cramps over in pain as the regeneration energy starts to build. And then, boosh, he's regenerating. And at the very end, we see the reflected shadow. We see the slightly distorted reflection of a young John Hurt. So now we know how the 8th Doctor became a War Doctor. Tune in on Saturday for Day of the Doctor. So, gang, what do you all make of it?
I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good. I thought it was quite clever. It was nice for them to make they didn't really need to make the effort, but they did make the effort to make it all, where the War Doctor came from. And it's a shame because I think we were robbed with Paul McGann. I think he would have been a great Doctor. And I know he's apparently been absolutely fantastic on Big Finish, but I think he would have been great. But no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. And 6 minutes.
Of course, he does reference a lot of his book and audio companions, just as he's going into his generation. So he does pay some homage to time served.
Well, Lucy Miller and Tasmin Drew and Molly O'Sullivan and a few others.
Yes.
So yeah, he does pay homage again, which is good. I thought that was very that was very well done as well to roll that in, because obviously you've been doing a lot more Big Finish then. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was very good, very clever, and fitted and slotted in a perfect slot. There you go. I know. I mean, okay, of course, apparently it was written originally for Eccleston, but you know,
I'm a bit schizoid about it.
Fair enough.
On the one hand, I absolutely love it, Chef's Kiss.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think Moffat's whole approach was wrong.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can see that as well.
I love it, but I think it should have been another way. So I love it for what it is, but it's less than it should or could have been.
I see.
What do you think was wrong with the approach, John? Like, do you think it was, like I'm just curious. Like, what is it you think was wrong with?
I think McGann's Doctor is the War Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Sorry. I mean, that's what I think. And there wasn't any suggestion that 9th didn't come from 8th.
So I thought you meant the episode.
That was included. No, but that was included with having 9th and the 10th and the 11th. They number themselves all the way up until Moffat starts shuffling pieces around for the Doctor's specials.
So I know you had.
I don't see why it had to be messed with. I also think some people say they did it this way because Eccleston wouldn't take part, but it's very, very clear, and we discussed this when we discussed Series 1. But in what's shown in screen on Rose, the Eccleston Doctor has literally just regenerated.
Yeah.
And of course, Big Finish of leaving in a whole bunch of it. No, that's not what's on screen. He's going new ears. This is not someone who's been in that form for any length of time. So on the good side of it, at least we do see the War Doctor become the Eccleston Doctor, which seems right. But why wasn't Paul McGann good enough?
No, I agree. So I thought you meant.
This is what I mean by the wrongness of the approach.
No, I understand. I knew you had a problem with that. I thought you just.
So when I think about Paul McGann in Night of the Doctor, I just feel he should have been the Doctor, having a moral dilemma all the way through Day of the Doctor.
Yeah.
I just don't see why they made the choice to sideline him and put John Hurt in, because it ultimately only made mess. I mean, the only answer that comes up is stunt casting pulling power. And I don't think it was a good decision to play fast and loose with the show's canon for the sake of stunt casting.
Yeah, I agree. I see where you're coming from.
So all of those aspects to it. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves because I'm talking about David Doctor here, but we need to focus back on Night of the Doctor. But in terms of why I feel schizoid about Night of the Doctor is because I love it, but also I go, why? At the same time. Yeah, so I think that's explained. Let's get Golden Age Geek's take on Night of the Doctor.
Well, I had seen, when I watched this episode, I had seen the TV movie, so it was good to see, McGann back in the role. I do think he is an incredibly underrated Doctor. Like, my dream, like, people, in fan circles, people sometimes say things like, oh, if you were the showrunner, if you were in charge, what would you do? But what I would do is try and create the series that he should have had. And that's always been my thoughts on it. I'd even go so far to say, right, get 90s filming equipment and just do it as if, that's what was supposed to happen. Just literally insert it into our timeline. So for all intents and purposes, just make it as if it was back then. But and just to touch on the point of McGann's Doctor being, he should have been what was the War Doctor. I mean, I do understand that. I do think people underestimate how much of an impact he did have in the Time War, though, because at this point in the story, where we are during the Time War, by the time of the Night of the Doctor, when he saves Cass on that ship, she makes it clear that the Daleks and the Time Lords, they're essentially the same thing now. They've both sort of gone into that grey area and there's no right or wrong anymore. So there has been a significant period of time passed in the Time War. So he has fought in the majority of it. I think it's just the War Doctor took over, come the end of it and the sort of conclusion of it.
Well, that isn't quite matching with what's in Night of the Doctor, because he makes a great point of saying how he hasn't been fighting in the war, and how he's been trying to help. So I think we can't look at that and go, that McGann Doctor fought in the war. I think Moffat protected him from that. Sadako's got a comment here. Moffat just felt the need to be contrary. He said he felt it made no sense for the Doctor to be fighting a war, particularly not romantic McGann. So he had to come up with an explanation. And that ties in with that, because in Night of the Doctor, as Moffat wrote him, McGann, the Eighth Doctor is very clear that he's not taken part in the war. So it's only when he becomes John Hurt he starts fighting. But then he's shown as young. And when we meet him in Day of the Doctor, he's then obviously settled into that incarnation quite a bit. So it allows us to imagine that there must have been a span of, I suggested a century earlier, but it could be any length of time, where he was all out just fighting the Daleks. Let's put it back into the episode. I mean, what did you make of Sisterhood of Khan? I mean, I imagine you didn't know about that when you saw Night of the Doctor for the first time. You hadn't seen Braden Morgan. Is that right? Yeah,
I didn't know who they were at this time. So obviously this was my introduction to them. They didn't have the biggest impression on me. They're not. I mean, they're not supposed to be prime characters, but when we see them in future appearances, they're okay. I mean, I don't think they're awful.
Fair enough. It's fair enough.
Not to divert too much from the story, it's just I completely understand what you're saying, John, with the fact that Moffat wanted to segregate the Doctor from all the fighting until he got into the War Doctor. But I've always looked at it as at this point, the Doctor has been involved in the Time War. He just hasn't got his hands dirty, so to speak, actually picking up a weapon and fighting like that. I've always interpreted it as, I'm sure the Doctor would have used his wits, his intelligence and technology to sort of aid in the war in some way, although he may not be necessarily
I took it more like he's trying to help the victims, trying to help them rebuild or something, or, Rather than trying to fight the war, he's trying to help the people affected by it.
That would have been a difficult job, though, wouldn't it? Because with the
very much a Doctor Impossible mission. Yeah,
because the Time Lords weren't exactly liked at that moment in time, because they were with the Daleks causing all the suffering. So it would have been a bit of an interesting, perhaps very interesting set of stories actually, to see if how we could.
Then also, I assume that with the conclusion of the Time War, all of his history got reset.
Well, perhaps that's something. Has that ever actually been?
So did this time when the Time Lords were ever as hasted as much as the Daleks ever actually happen, or was it undone? Question mark.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
No, because it's an interesting one. It's an interesting
messing
one.
with the universe and not explaining things. That's just very Doctor Who thing to do.
Yeah, it's very Doctor Who thing to do.
Have we got more comments to make about Night of the Doctor?
Oh, well, I haven't given any yet.
Come on,
Okay, I don't have much to say because I think a lot of it has been said. I will. Overall, to us, I'm not that big a fan of Paul McGann. Like, he's okay, but he's not the type of actor that I would cast as the Doctor. I mean, I think if you're going to cast the Doctor, it's always better to get a quirky, eccentric character actor. And yeah, sometimes you can cast a more conventional leading man like Peter Davison, who I think got away with it. But ultimately, in Paul McGann's case, I don't really think he knew as much about the character as Peter Davison, and he was the first to bring in, all the stupid kissing stuff. So, like, I'm saying, but having said that, I think this was quite a good. He was good in this short, and it was quite a good, wee short film form. But to be honest, my only objection, aside from that it should have been him, and even I think it should have been him rather than an imposter doctor. See if they weren't going to have Paul McGann be the War Doctor, they should have made this sequence, Night of the Doctor, the intro for the name of the Doctor. This should have been the lead into it, so that then, and they could have maybe even had Paul McGann play the moment.
That would fit chronologically, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of no, because actually the intro to Name of the Doctor is the TARDIS being stolen in the first place. So no, it wouldn't fit chronologically.
Oh, sorry, no. Sorry, I didn't mean to say Name of the Doctor. I meant to say Day of the Doctor. Right. Yeah, sorry, it should have fitted into the 50th.
But then the reason this was shoved out on YouTube in the first place is because maybe they just didn't think the general audience wanted to know who Paul McGann was. Didn't want to remind the general audience
that the show's past.
They've been fed a TV movie that had flopped, It
hadn't flopped in the UK though. It got over 9 million.
In the UK. That's very true.
So they could have just shown it. It wouldn't have been a big deal. I think that should have been the opening 5 or 6 minutes for the Day of the Doctor, not Name of the Doctor. And then Paul McGann should have played the moment if they weren't going to have him. I mean, he'd have been so much better for the moment than Billy Piper, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Well, indeed.
I'll just choose to look like someone you haven't met yet.
Yeah, it's New Who, typically being ashamed of old Who, which again, considering what New Who's done, is fucking ironic.
Well, yeah, that's what I say.
Season 24 looks like a masterpiece compared to the Capaldi and Jodie eras.
But yeah,
sorry, I didn't take it off on that.
That's all right.
I'm sounding challenging for next week.
Ooh,
okay.
Right.
So, are we ready to move on from Name of the Doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody ready? Well,
Yep.
Let's see then. I loved it to bits. Even though I've said I'm very happy with the choices too. The sort of choices Moffat made in a bigger context of the whole 60th. I loved it to bits. I was just fanboying. A+ for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I will give it an A, a flat straight A. I enjoyed it. It made sense. I enjoyed it, but so an A. It's not quite an A+ for me, but an A definitely. How about you, Golden Age Geek? What do you give it?
I will give it an A as well.
Ooh, over to you, Joe.
I'll give it. Well, yeah, I'll give it an A. I can't really think of anything. Can't really think of anything wrong with it.
Wow. Panel says B for Name of the Doctor, A for Night of the Doctor. Now let's see what we make of Day of the Doctor. I wonder. I mean, does this chat need a recap of the story of Day of the Doctor?
Oh, come on. We should have all watched it to death by now.
I mean, it's a good point, isn't it?
I need to go for a few minutes. Just something at the door. I'll be back.
Yeah. No, well, in that case, you mute off for do your door for it, and I should do a brief recap.
Yeah, briefly.
No problem.
Because we start in black and white, which I rather liked.
Yes, I thought it was good.
With the 1963 titles, also briefly looking wonderful in high definition.
Oh,
and we see a policeman walking along who turns out to be a modern policeman walking along in front of Coal Hill School. That sounds familiar again, 50 years later, which just happens to be where Clara's got a job.
Of course.
Because there's nowhere else she could possibly have got a job in the entire country than the school that the Doctor had an association with 50 years before. And while she's at school, she gets a phone call. It's already big and important, and units calling her and stuff. And she's got to go meet the Doctor. So she gets on a motorbike and she rides along a bit, and then she rides into the TARDIS, and the TARDIS takes off. But it doesn't take off because the Doctor's put time at her, but because it's been helicoptered into the air. Because the units nicked it. I mean, now airlift the TARDIS and lower it in Trafalgar Square, because it's vitally important that the Doctor visits the National Portrait Gallery. Because there is a hidden archive of forbidden things in there, And these pictures have been causing problems because they're odd pictures, they're 3D pictures in this art gallery, but there were people in the pictures, but now the people have gone.
Yes, they've disappeared.
So the doctor's trying to work out if people can walk out of paintings. And in doing so, he finds a kind of holy-moly in time and space. And he chucks his fez in it.
Of course.
Because this connects to the time stream of the 10th Doctor, who's currently canoodling with Elizabeth I, who may in fact be a Zygon, or maybe his horse.
Indeed.
So we get some running around with a machine that goes ding, trying to ascertain which Elizabeth I is safe to snog and which is the one with the poisonous tentacles.
Indeed.
And it's while all this is going on that a hat gets chucked through. And that was unexpected. Even more unexpected is when the Doctor himself jumps in moments later, and now 11 meets 10.
Yay!
Just as they're trying to work out what's going on, here's this other bloke who turns up.
Yeah, that's all the guy.
And this, of course, is who we now know as the War Doctor, who's walked out into the desert of Gallifrey with a Time Lord super weapon in his backpack. And he's got out in this barn and he's starting to activate the moment. Which is a super weapon capable of destroying both Daleks and Time Lords and bringing the Time War to an end. But just one problem. It's clever. And it's only going to do what it's going to do if you persuade it, but it's right when it do it.
Yes.
So in order to explore this whole question of whether the War Doctor is mad or sane, and whether the moment should or should not be used, the moment sends the Doctor to explore his own timeline.
Indeed.
And this is where he meets up with 11 and 10. Now having a nice old shindig going, oh hello, what are you waving your screwdrivers around for? What are you trying to do? Assemble a cabinet, you bloody idiots. And that is so meta.
Yes.
After years and years and years of writing the Doctor like a bloody idiot, waving his magic stick around, all of a sudden, the same writer is going, what were you doing that for? Don't know.
Well, yeah. Makes no sense.
Bit odd, really.
Yes,
but in doing so, in classic Doctor Who fashion, they do, of course, get captured.
Of course.
And locked in prison.
Yes.
So they come up with a very clever plan whereby if they all get their sonic screwdrivers across hundreds of years of time to work on the same problem, they can actually finally get a sonic screwdriver to work on wood.
To work on wood, because it never worked on wood. Indeed.
So we now find out that all over the centuries, that same algorithm was ticking away inside the Doctor's screwdriver all that time. And when it comes to the magic wood opening, they suddenly realise they forgot to test if the door was actually locked.
Yes, as you do.
But that was a very amusing diversion and waste of several minutes of screen time.
It certainly was.
So we moved on. Because it turns out these statues, right, that have disappeared, they haven't disappeared at all. They're spread all over the floor as statue dust. And the reason they're spread over the floor is because somebody else is standing under the blankets. It's the Zygons!
The Zygons are back!
And Unit very swiftly gets overpowered.
Yes.
Typical.
And
typical Unit.
And the Zygons are down with this, let's do the whole missile thing. And all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, it's not good, really. The Zygons are like, the plan's a bit bad. But then, the Doctors turn up, having timey-wimey their way out of it. They wangle their way to turn up in unit headquarters. And they go, ha-ha! Now, we've made it so that none of you can remember who the hell you are, so you don't know if you're Zygon or human. Why don't you stop the detonation? Woohoo! Everyone's fine.
Yes, great.
So
well
this neutralises the Zygon threat and gives the Doctors a moment to get together and have a cup of tea.
Absolutely.
And while they're having a cup of tea, they talk about what really matters, which is Gallifrey.
Yeah.
And who counted the number of children on Gallifrey that night? But the War Doctor decides that, having seen his future and having seen the men that he will become, he is happy to pay the price of living with the decision to use the moment. And with that, he returns to the barn on Gallifrey. But if you think the other doctors were leaving it there, well, it just shows you how dead wrong we were. And immediately they get Crash. And they go, oh, no. We've had hundreds of years to think about this. And therefore, what we're not going to do is we're not going to push that button.
No.
Not going to do it. No. We are not pushing times. And that seems to be it. Except that 11th has an idea. Hang on a cotton picking minute, he says. What if, instead of destroying Gallifrey, we hide it like the paintings? We hide it within its own pocket dimension.
Yes.
And if we get that just right and hide Gallifrey just right, okay, they'll be trapped in one particular moment of time and space, but they will be alive. Yes. And meanwhile, the Daleks will wipe each other out in the crossfire the moment Gallifrey disappears. Yes. Oh, damn it, though, that's going to take a lot of work. Oh, you can't really just wangle this one on the fly. If only we'd had hundreds of years to work on this. Not to worry. The Doctor calling Gallifrey. All 13 of him.
Yes.
So the first Doctor, the second Doctor, the third Doctor, the fourth Doctor, the fifth Doctor, the sixth Doctor, the seventh Doctor. They're all here. The ninth Doctor, the 10th Doctor, the 11th Doctor. And even the eyebrows.
The eyebrows.
Of the 12th Doctor. Yes. All 13, sir, pulls levers. Because this is the moment that they've been preparing for. And the TARDISes coordinate their efforts with the moment so that Gallifrey disappears perfectly. The Daleks then immediately annihilate themselves as they get hit by their own weapons. And to everybody else looking, it watches like everybody die. Hooray! Victory! Gallifrey is saved, the Doctor is redeemed, and the War Doctor wasn't so bad after all. The end! Run titles.
Yay!
See you at Christmas.
Yeah, 25th.
Right. Firstly, let's find out, is Burrinjaw back?
Yes, I think he might be. Are you there, Burrinjaw?
Oh, yes,
yeah, he's back. Okay,
yeah.
So we're fully equipped. So who wants to start off giving their response to Day of the Doctor?
So I'll go first. I've got quite a bit.
That sounds like volunteer.
Sorry,
go for
you want to go, Bobby?
Yes. No, carry on.
No, Burrinjaw, floor is yours.
Oh, what I was going to say was, at the time, I thought it was absolutely amazing. I think it was like one of the best things I'd ever seen. And looking back on it today, it does still hold up. It's really, really enjoyable. John Hurt's obviously excellent. Him, Matt, and David all have brilliant chemistry together. And it's actually quite a good... Like, what I'm going to say about the War Doctor, everyone goes on about how he should have been more, fearsome and dark. But I actually quite like the resolution to the story because I think it shows you, it kind of sums up who the Doctor is, that though he may change on the surface, you can never change who he is. Like, fundamentally, he is always the same guy. And so it makes sense, even when he's supposedly taking this potion or whatever, even that can't change him. And in the end of the day, the Doctor's end up saving Gallifrey the way the Doctor always saves the day. Thinks outside the box, doesn't play by the rules, does something that seems like it's going to, not work. And he also tricks his enemies into destroying each other. So it's, he doesn't just nuke them. So overall, I thought that was a good take on the Doctor's character, and it all made sense in the end. And also, I must confess, I was glad Gallifrey was back. I never liked the Doctor being the last of his kind. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know they shouldn't do too much on Gallifrey. But ironically, I think by killing it off, you put it to the forefront more because it always has to be mentioned that he's the last of his kind. You know, he can't just like be a renegade. So I was glad they undid that. And, you know, again, there were lots of really cool ideas, like the paintings being moments in time that were captured. One thing I will say that worked against it was I don't think the Zygons should have been the main villains. I think the Daleks should have been the main villains. That would have actually been more fitting if Kate had been taken to her limits trying to stop a Dalek invasion or something. Because the Zygons, it was the wrong time to bring them back. They went, and also I hated the way the Zygons looked in it. I mean, their costumes, ironically, you know, they look worse than the 70s ones because they've got a dopey expression. They look plastic. But still, I mean, overall, I think it was a good anniversary story. But it is.
I guess if it was 70s Zygons were alien freak baby. I mean, they were quite a lot more out there in the disturbingly freaky stakes. You know, if they did have this
they were in their voice again, Nicholas.
There was a weird baby-like quality to them that made people's skin crawl. And I agree.
Absolutely. Also, again, their voices were so much creepier in the original.
Moffat monsters
they sound really
human faces. Because it's the same as the Silurians. It's so clearly a normal human face being projected through that mask. It's not an alien face.
Yeah.
Is that the problem with these Zygons?
I think
so. Well, yeah, that, and also, as I said, the expression just looks a bit dopey, like when it opens its mouth. It looks silly. And that doesn't help by the fact that they have them do silly things like turn into Queen Elizabeth and kiss the Doctor. And also, again, Nicholas Briggs, he has to be such a fucking hog when it comes to doing the voices. And his voices for the Zygons, they're just kind of that, maybe a bit more whispery, maybe they're a bit like that. But it's like the same thing he does all the time. And it's like, to me, the original ones were better when the actors could actually act in those costumes, you know? Sadako's also said. Sadako said at the bottom, and I completely agree with him on this, that there should have been more classic Who callbacks. I think that it did suffer from the new Who thing at the time of being a bit sneery at the original and not wanting to honour it in quite the way it should have done.
Well,
like the end bit, I do love.
One of the biggest classic Who comebacks was the appearance of Tom Baker in the story.
Oh, yeah.
Well, believe it or not, that didn't actually go quite. Yes, I do. I was going to say I didn't mind the idea at the time, but although I don't like the Doctor degenerating, I don't mind it when it's like something so far in the future you'll never see it. But Tom Baker apparently was very unhappy with how that went down. He said they rushed him out at I think it was like 2 a.m, and nobody spoke to him apart from Matt Smith, and he thought the script was shit. He was actually going to walk out until he bumped into Matt Smith, who was so enthusiastic he convinced him to do it. But yeah, he said that he didn't like doing it, and he thought Moffat was an arse as well. So take of that. But I mean,
golden quotes.
There were some golden quotes. There were some good callbacks, but even then, see the big bit at the end. Whilst I do love that bit where you see all the Doctors saving Gallifrey. Even then, it wasn't done fit on the screen as well as it could. The Doctors were too small. The footage was too blurry. I mean, there's fan videos people have done that are better done than that, where you actually see the clips of the Doctors. It feels like they're all there more. So it was always a bit flawed, but it's definitely been let down by what came after. The search for Gallifrey. Sorry.
We've got a question from Eastland Burpholder. Could the Zygons have been better by having their faces taller or wider than a human face? I can only say it isn't really about the tallness or the wideness so much as it's the uncanny valley. And if you go and look at go and Google up Terror of the Zygons, and if you don't know already, if you go and have a look at the 70s Zygons and compare them, you'll see how they are quite a bit more disturbing in the face.
They are much more disturbing.
So it's really getting into it's really sort of it lost a little bit of what made you skin crawl about them, which I think was a shame.
Yes.
No, yeah, I agree. The only thing I want to mention just about the the 50th again is that it is let down by what came after it, like because the search for Gallifrey and even what happened to the moment, those could have been good story arcs. Because what did happen to the moment? Where did he bury it? But they just didn't go anywhere. I mean, Tom Baker says to him, "Oh, you've got a lot of work
the
to
moment put itself back where it came from in the vault in Gallifrey."
I don't. Maybe it did, but even then, there should be more. I think like there could have been more done. And as
was
finding
was
Gallifrey,
it set loose on the universe to go adjusting things as it
who knows?
I think it's back in the vault.
Well, it could be, but even then, as I said, like finding Gallifrey, the Doctor says you've got so much to do, but no, he didn't. Nothing. There was nothing happened, and then Gallifrey is destroyed within about 5 years. So, it's a shame. It's let down by the crap that came after, but at the time, it was a good tribute, and it could have set things up for a really good era. I think of Doctor Who.
I just don't understand how a man who is so gifted as Stephen Moffat in so many ways can lack a good idea to what to do with Time Lords.
I know. What's the speculation they've got for the Time Lords? Why do we? I mean, okay, yes, the Time Lords were overused a bit in the 80s, but dear God, get over like 80s Doctor Who being, made fun of in some crappy panel shows. It's like the Time Lords can be a good idea. The Deadly Assassin, the War Games, the Three Doctors, those are all classic stories. So why not just use the Time Lords every now and again
and we used to them to set up stories like Terror of the Autons, Genesis of the Daleks. Ooh,
exactly.
Colony in Space was another one set up by Time Lord, wasn't it? So there's a lot I just don't get about why Gallifrey can't have a place and a relationship in the universe. I just don't really get
I know that they've fucked the Time Lord. I say the New Who writers collectively, from Davis to Moffat to Chibnall, have fucked the Time Lords harder
Davis
than anyone I know.
In he brought the Time Lords back just as he was finishing. So he obviously wasn't going to develop them as showrunner. He brought them back as his last story. It's Moffat who's failed to develop the Time Lords, and it's Chibnall who completely squandered the Time Lords.
Oh, he destroyed them.
Interesting. Obviously we are all paying attention to bits of rumor and bits of information at the moment around the 60th. And there's a lot of talk right now that Gallifrey is going to be involved.
Yes.
And I mean, in the light of the time as children, I think we'd all be very happy to see Gallifrey brought back. But it's ridiculous what we've got in this position in the first place.
Yeah.
Because why has the Doctor Who production failed to produce one decent narrative and only one dodgy narrative about the Time Lords in 10 years?
I don't know. I don't know what the hatred of the Time Lords is. It's insane, quite frankly, to hate such a big part of the lore. I can understand thinking it's overused and maybe not being interested in it. But what they've done, they killed them off. They made them into villains, and then they took away their special status as the Doctor's people and killed them off again. I mean, it's why do you hate them?
I'm sad to say that the sort of people who don't like Time Lords are also the sort of people who don't like the royal family. I mean, it's all kind of connected in that.
I'm
not necessarily sure it's a good connection to draw, actually, I must admit. But it's just that it's like your friend Claudia's essay, Chris Chibnall of the British Empire, and how the modern fan, the Jodie era fan, they have a vision of Britain's history, but then means the Doctor Who's fictional Time Lords in some ways are seen as representing that history, when I think it was always the opposite, in so many, certainly in places like Deadly Assassin,
To be fair, I
therefore
don't think
they think the Time Lords have to be dealt with because they're a problematic concept.
I can't really speak obviously for Claudia, but from what I remember and other ones like her, I don't think they necessarily had a hatred for the Time Lords before the Timeless Children's story. I mean, I know they thought like that it was a kind of metaphor for the British Empire, but that's the point. It was only because that episode did make them a clumsy metaphor, the way they exploited this person. That's the point. Like before,
maybe
before
it
that,
isn't
a lot of
hatred. It's more like
a lot of young fans were actually excited about Hellbent because it was. And I remember at the time a lot of them saying, "Oh, we're going to finally see Gallifrey properly," if you know what I mean. So it's like even I think if they'd done it well, they could have still even brought them back. For the new generation, it's like they're just really, and also I mean they seem to hate other Time Lord characters. Like they'll never bring back Omega or the Rani or any of these ones. So I mean it's quite funny how much they hate it.
They see the Time Lords as a patriarchy. Well, I mean, of course, the word patriarchy has been thrown around about Doctor Who a lot in the last 10 years. But it's not just about the Time Lords, it's also about an accusation that's been made about the way the show's been produced.
Yep.
It's been patriarchal. So, I mean, we've been down a right old road since the days of the Day of the Doctor.
Well, we certainly have.
This was the last time I was happy as a fan. I mean, not in general. It was the last time I was happy as a Doctor Who fan. Was the 50th, because obviously it went downhill straight away for me with the Peter Capaldi era.
Fair enough. It'd be interesting.
That's such a shame, isn't it?
It is really.
Such a shame.
But
we haven't heard from Golden Age Geek on the Day of the Doctor, so let's tap into what his brain's got to tell us.
Well, of course, like most people, I absolutely love this episode. I have always thought as well, I can't remember who it was, I think it may have been Burringill, who said that the Daleks should have been the main villains of this story and not the Zygons. I always thought it was a weird choice that they made the Zygons, a threat in this episode. I felt that was a little bit out of place. I do think that. I don't know what everyone else thinks about that, but I do think that they were an odd choice to have, all things considered. And also another thing, David Tennant, it was great to see him back. I mean, that guy can literally, and as we've seen from the teasers for the upcoming specials, that guy can just slip back into the role anytime he wants. Like, he's an amazing actor. But his hair in this episode is so off-putting. Because I don't know why. I don't know whether it's for another role or anything like that, but his hair is just flat and it looks boring. I don't know what was going on there. But
we used to call him... There was an anti-New Who forum. I think he used to be called the spunk-haired Doctor. So maybe he read that and was desperate to put it down. I don't know.
It's one way of questioning a rumor, isn't it?
Deco suggests. I think Moffat wanted to have a lighter villain, so it'd be a more light respite from the heavy Dalek war stuff.
Yeah, possible. Yeah.
Well, I mean. A Zygon does allow you to have a bit of a slap and tickle, laugh and a chase around and jokes about kissing. You don't get a lot of jokes about kissing out of Daleks.
No, it's not right on their priority list.
Sorry, Golden Age Geek. I interrupted you there. Sorry, carry on.
And also, in our last stream, we talked about, in the episode, The Crimson Horror, how, we've never really seen the TARDIS as, not the TARDIS, the Sonic Screwdriver as sort of a penis metaphor. But in this episode, when 11 and 10 meet, and they whip out their Sonics, and of course, 11's got the longer, more impressive one.
Jags, yeah.
Yes, it was. It was definitely massively one there.
Which friend makes John Hurt Doctor is very saying, "What the hell are you waving your cocks around for, boys?"
He should have said that line. Yeah, he does.
Which, the whole association is just a bad idea, even for the laugh. There we are. But let's talk about another aspect of this. David Tennant's Doctor. What a stinking bastard.
Just a bit. Just a little bit, wasn't he?
Is that any way to treat a lady?
No, it's certainly not a way to treat a lady.
Oh, right, yeah.
Disgusting behaviour. Oh, dear me. But then again, why not use the opportunity to be like that?
I get it. It's entertaining. It's funny. It's a short code. The audience can immediately relate to it. If they don't know his character, they're going to be on his side because he's cheeky and chappy and so on. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's the price that gets paid.
Yeah.
You know, and it's when RT. I know RT's come back and we've got all sorts of thoughts about that. But when RTD was in charge, he was very clear about the whole Doctor Romance thing. You can walk up to the line, but you don't go crossing it.
Never cross the line.
I'd say he did, to be honest.
Well, I kind of agree, perhaps. I mean, but nevertheless,
it's stupid
the topic was talked about. The topic,
but see, it was more because when people say, like, you know, what's he going to say back to Rose? I mean, what do you think he wasn't going to say? Oh, Rose, you know, I actually think that Let It Be is quite an underrated Beatles album. He's not going to say that, is he? Like, he's going to. So I mean, yeah, it's like.
It would have been
brilliant. Say, I love you, you know, Rose or whatever. So that's what I mean. It's like they already crossed it for me personally, you know.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have been crossed. It should have been left.
Oh, absolutely, it's creepy.
Yeah, it is creepy because remember how old he is.
It didn't damage the Doctor at the time, but does it damage the Doctor when you sit back and think about it?
I think it did. I think that Russell T Davies in the long run did an unimaginable amount of damage to the brand. Okay, he made it popular, which, by the way, like could have happened with another writer. It was still a big brand. A lot of its popularity was down to nostalgia, but Russell brought it back wrong. He introduced the character to the new generation as a young, sexy hero that girls wanted and boys wanted to be, which is not what he should have been. He should be a kind of crazy old grandfather, and that's what made it hard for other actors to escape from the David Tennant prototype. You only have to look at Peter Capaldi. He, for 1 year, then he was forced to be a Tennant clone. Jodie even was a bloody Tennant clone. So yeah, I think Russell T Davies and his Doctor Companion romance stuff did irreparable damage to the brand that even today we're struggling to escape from, to be honest. I'm not sure we ever will.
And the Dr. Elizabeth business in David Doctor is all part of that.
Yes, it is.
Or is it? I mean, I tend to think it is. Because it just shows the Doctor as being really selfish.
He shouldn't seduce someone.
To get sex with a human?
Yeah, you see. Exactly.
Well, what sort of snogging about if it hasn't got some entry involved afterwards?
Well,
I know.
Yeah, I know. You see, the more you think about it, the more you look at it. It's not good, is it? Really, it really isn't good.
The door to Phasbin shipping could never have been opened without things like this being done to the character of 10.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think
and showing in Day of the Doctor, 10 does not care about the lines, but he set himself during his time when he was actually the lead character. So is it an undermining of 10's character? Yes or no?
Yeah.
I'd say it is. I've always felt it was.
It is.
I've always felt like I want to be clear. It's not been enough for me to go, oh no, this is crap, I reject all of it. I just thought the whole thing was a shame.
Yeah, see, I can enjoy some of the 10th Doctor Rose love story as just, you know, it's a cheesy love story in its own right. And I could even get on board with it if it was a remake and I didn't. But I said, trying to make it the same as the original and having it that's still William Hartnell under the new face is getting off with, you know, Billy Piper and Freema Agyeman. No, that's creepy. It's crap, and it's destroying the Doctor. And quite frankly, in hindsight, I think it was the beginning of the core of the Doctor's character being undermined, rewritten, that would eventually unravel when the feminist stuff was introduced.
Yeah.
Can we bring in Papalazzi's comments here? He says same people say the Doctor was in love with Joe Grant. I mean, for me, he means the Phasman-shippers here, which is rubbish, and Katie Manning says it's rubbish.
Yeah.
But I haven't got a problem saying that the third Doctor loved Joe Grant. But he loved her as a platonic paternal figure.
Absolutely.
He didn't love her as a potential romantic mate. You know, and the third Doctor, I think, out of all of the Doctors, is potentially the one whose dialogue is the most dismissive of women.
Mm.
And when we cover the Pertwee, well, it is actually. If you listen to it, you know, there's quite a bit of just make us a cup of coffee, dear, kind of stuff. You know, which isn't in any of the other Doctors. But when we discussed the Pertwee at the time, you know, we recognised that this was being done so that women's liberation issues could be brought into the show. So it's having opportunity for Joe Grant to say you need some women's lib around here, which he did most of her episodes. There was some kind of women's libbish kind of comment. And then with Sarah Jane, it was much more. It was more firm, more militant. So, you know, I mean, when people say Doctor Who's always been woke, it's not without some merit to the argument. And Doctor Who has always been looking to have a socially progressive aspect.
There's a world of difference, so I won't talk about it now. But there's a world of difference between
the 70s,
bringing politics. But this is also
what it's done today. It's to impose the ideology. It's very different.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. I mean, I won't talk about this now because it's a different, you know, thing. But maybe in the Peter Capaldi videos, there really is a world of difference between making something political and what New Who does. It's like they're not even remotely comparable, to be honest. I mean, I know why you would say that, but personally, I think that's always a false equivalence that gets like Mr. TARDIS behind, you know.
Yeah,
Doctor Who was always left wing. I hate that prick.
Yeah, well, everybody does.
Yeah,
thing is,
he's not Claudia Boleyn. He's not, you know, a likable person. He's a wanker.
He's an idiot of the highest order. Now, the thing is, I've always seen the Doctor as he was originally, which is a grandfather. That's what he is. He's a grandfather. So, you know, that's where the love is. It's the love of a grandfather to his grandkids, and that's how it should stay. You know,
I think that's how the Doctor should see humanity.
Exactly.
With a caring, caretakery grandfatherly love.
Although, actually, you know, Big Finish did something.
Why would you help humans so much if you didn't love them?
No, I agree, but I was just saying and speaking of like him being a grandfather and how different it is in New Who, Big Finish did something unbelievably creepy. I don't know why they did it, but apparently they revealed Susan's name in Gallifreyan was Rose. Susan. Why the hell would you want to draw comparisons between those two characters? I don't know, but they did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange.
I know. That's creepy.
Well, yeah, creepy and strange. No, it should leave him as a grandfather. That's how it was. That's how it should be. But it's a bit late now. I don't think we're ever gonna come back to that level now.
And we can't undo what was done.
No, it's done now, unfortunately.
Well, I think you can just do actually. Getting back to you, Golden Age Geek, what you said about if you were made showrunner, do a series with Paul McGann and then just have him regenerate into a new 9th Doctor. That's what I would do. Get rid of fucking you
just
right away.
The whole thing, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just New Who, reset New Who.
Yeah.
Well, what I mean is we can't fix the damage that was done to the 10th Doctor's character.
No, we can't.
No. You know, because certainly in terms of New Who, you know, he's a New Who character. You know, so if New Who damages him, that's on New Who.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, I think it's just perhaps it isn't something that fans have overthought about, but it's always something that struck me about Day of the Doctor. That I don't like the way the 10th Doctor is set up. However, let's talk about things which are good. And let's try 2 different areas. 1, the funky paintings, and 2, the Dalek scenes.
Oh yeah, the battle scenes were awesome.
Yes. So,
very, very well done. Very, very well done. Very well shot. They were very enjoyable. Yeah, the camera work in that was absolutely excellent. Yeah, you can't fault them. They were really enjoyable. I remember them clearly. They are good.
The 3D pictures especially showed off.
Oh, fantastic!
The 3D aspect of the show when the story was shown in cinemas. So partly it was in there to take advantage of IMAX. But did it work as a concept? Very odd, very Gallifreyan, weird kind of concept, isn't it? Time frozen in paintings, but in 3D.
Do you want to go first, Golden Age Geek? It's about this,
Yeah, I just had something running on in the background, so I didn't hear exactly what he said.
I was sorry.
It wasn't me being rude. It was a third party ad just popped up.
No.
That's so annoying.
But no, I mean, it was talking about the Dalek scenes and also the use of the 3D pictures. Did both those aspects of the story work? Were you happy with those?
I think it worked because I've always been under the assumption, along with certain characteristics of the Doctor and things in his history, like his name, where he comes from, we won't get into what has actually happened, but my rule has always been, there's certain things that you should keep mysterious, certain things that you shouldn't reveal. And with the Time War, I've always associated those rules with that as well. However, they revealed enough to make it interesting, to show us, give us the context, but they didn't totally ruin it by revealing everything and all the horrors that they're only merely referred to. So I liked what they did because it gave us enough of the Time War for us to understand and for us to be able to dive into the mindset of the War Doctor, but it didn't show enough to the point where it ruins it, because whatever fans have in their mind is always, well, most of the time, better than what is actually on the screen. And I think you should enable the audience to imagine certain aspects of a show, a movie for themselves, and you should leave things very, very mysterious and things like that. So I liked that. The scene where the three Doctors throw the Dalek through the other painting and they walk out, that always gives me chills.
Yeah, it's awesome. That is a good one.
Well, I mean, actually, I'm going to disagree just a bit with you guys in that whilst the Dalek fight scenes were very impressive, I actually think it was a bit underwhelming for the Time War, because considering what we've been told about the Time War being this, event full of Lovecraftian horrors and monsters, I think they should have shown a bit more of that. I mean, and they could have done that even with their budget. There's a fan video, I think it's called The Dalek That Time Forgot. It's just a story about, it shows you how Dalek Khan went back into the Time War to save Davros. It's really good.
Yeah, you're nicking my thunder there, because I was going to come in and say some things about Dalek Khan.
Sorry. But, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. You see the Nightmare Child, and it looks amazing in that fan video. They also give it Godzilla's roar as well, which is quite cool.
I haven't seen that fan video, but just in general, I think Dalek Khan should have been connected to this story.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Even a cameo, it would have been cool. But you see,
here's what I am on it. I think the Daleks themselves were portrayed excellently. I think the Dalek battle scenes are actually genuinely scary, especially for small children.
It's not bad, but it's just not.
The scenes in this story are actually intimidating. But you see, there's a big but.
Big buts.
What I object to is that the Daleks themselves are in no way actual protagonists. They are like a background force of nature that has to be overcome. They're not actively engaged with the story beyond they're shooting Gallifrey and they're going to keep shooting until Gallifrey blows up. That's what the Daleks are doing. Now, I mean, surely the Daleks would have been looking for their own way to break the deadlock.
Well,
and therefore would have been aware of devices like the moment. So I would have liked to have seen the Daleks in some way directly compete for the moment.
That actually sounds like it could have been a more interesting story, to be honest. To have the War Doctor and the Dalek.
And I think perhaps the best way to do it would have been some sort of commando raid on the timeline by Dalek Khan.
Yeah.
Because when we meet Khan at Journey's End, he's utterly broken and insane. When we last saw him, he was casing intact doing an emergency temporal jump. So how did he get so fucked up?
Good point. Good point.
Bringing him in an attempt to seize control of a moment and failing and being forced to jump away again, and that's why he became so damaged and mad. I think
makes sense.
Very nicely tied things up and made the Daleks a far more pivotal part in the plot than just sitting there like chumps asking to be done over.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That would work.
That sounds actually cool.
We've discussed having a problem with squeezing this in with the Zygon plot as well, and wanting to go for more lighter-hearted.
I just ditched the Zygons.
I don't even think a Dalek Khan subplot would even have had to have been very involved. It could have been literally a shocking moment that the Doctors all defeated their sonic crewdriver, and it's just like, how's a vampire that happened? But it would at least, I don't know, it would at least have done something. No, it would need to be better than that. But I regret that the Daleks were a background force.
Yeah.
What did sorry, just ask a question. What did you guys think of Unit in this?
Well, they always are. Yeah. They're rubbish.
Yeah.
Why have this amazing combat force, which is just literally pointless?
They always get overpowered.
They get overpowered easily. They never seem to want to upgrade their equipment. They just they
miss every trick.
Every trick. Fall for ambushes. I mean, isn't there supposed to be this elite fighting force? They're barely out of basic training. They're that bad. It's unreal. I mean, literally, I'm sat there going, "Why are you doing that for?" Because why are you setting yourself up for that?
Do you have a secret fetish to be eaten by aliens? Join Unit.
Join Unit. You did have a military career. Now just stand in the most obvious place possible where you will get killed instantly. Because it's not what you do. Why haven't they invented body armor that can help them? These things.
I know from all the alien technology they have stored in the vault, and they still go around with crappy little pea-shooter guns.
I'm afraid that Unit is just window dressing for a dramatic scene.
Yeah.
Otherwise, pretty pointless in this story. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and also the helicoptering the TARDIS into central London makes no bloody sense either.
No, replace that intro with the Paul McGann bit. That was the Night of the Doctor.
Yeah,
make that the opening of this story instead of the helicopter bit.
Fans better, but they had to have these absurd moments. They got themselves into that mindset where this was what the show was, and they felt they had to deliver.
It's a shame, really.
But it doesn't make a lot of sense with Doctor hanging on to the edge of the TARDIS being lowered into Trafalgar Square. It's dramatic. Well, that's all it's really got going for it. It doesn't make it. It doesn't make sense.
No, no logical sense whatsoever to it. But they did it now, so. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. But so maybe it would help if we compared Day of the Doctor to the Five Doctors.
Oh.
I'd say it was better at the time, but what came after has kind of undermined it.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It moved the story on by bringing Gallifrey back, but then it didn't do anything with it. Whereas the Five Doctors was just a kind of member berries fest. I mean, a good member berries fest.
Just recognizing that the anniversary episodes are hard to write.
Yeah.
I mean, Five Doctors defeated Robert Holmes. Terrence Dix came in and knocked it into shape. And and Moffat has delivered us Day of the Doctor. How dare you? You're very, very dare. I'm asking you to compare them, not me. But Five Doctors was good, Day of the Doctor was average. I think I would actually vibe with that.
I can't disagree.
Three Doctors.
You know,
The Three Doctors is the best.
In terms of standing the test of time, well, the Three Doctors is also awesome.
Yeah, Three Doctors is brilliant.
Three Doctors is best without doubt, in my opinion.
The Two Doctors is not.
The Two Doctors is good awesome because Jacqueline Pierce is fantastic as the villain, but I agree, stories are mess.
Let's try that comparison another way. Yeah. How does Day of a Doctor compare to The Power of a Doctor?
Oh, God.
Oh, come on. Really?
Obviously better, obviously.
And yet fandom was, on the whole, quite happy with Power of the Doctor. I think mostly happy because of what it's sort of back of.
The biggest thing. It's the.
I'm asking these questions. I just want to try and gauge the real level of Moffat's achievement with Day of the Doctor. Is this a classic Doctor Who story, which is a pillar of the show's history, or is it a special that didn't quite deliver? Which is it? Did it fall short or did it make it?
A classic, but really, to be honest, as I said, I think you should watch it as the finale to New Who. I think it actually works better as the finale, where the Doctor's saved Gallifrey and there's a chance he might avert his bad future. That should be the end of it, to be honest.
It certainly is a good ending. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, great.
And it holds up as a classic when you do that. It holds up as a classic.
Yeah, and it also avoids the need to watch Time of a Doctor, which is what we really ought to be moving along to. So let's go for some final scores then for Day of the Doctor. I'll start us off. Taking it all into account, I think this was an excellent stab at the 50th anniversary story. I think it delivered for fans at the time, but I think it isn't wearing so well as other efforts. So I don't think of it as. I mean, I think of End of Time with a lot more respect than Day of the Doctor.
Oh, I disagree. Sorry about that.
I know we've had that discussion, but I do genuinely think that the End of Time is a far better story. I enjoy it a lot more. And these are both New Who grand finale efforts. On the whole, I'm going to settle. What I like, what I don't like, what I feel was the failure to really cement an idea, which to me means the idea shouldn't have been brought in the first place, which is represented by the War Doctor. I think the failure to genuinely have done it as protagonists. I think where the Zygon plot falls apart a bit, and the fact that unit is crap. I think we're coming out a B-.
Interesting. I will give it a B- also. And the problem is, the thing is, this score will go down. Well, depending on what happens next, because it has been this has sadly been ruined by what came after it. Unfortunately, it really did took the shine off this this one. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy. I remember watching it when it first came out.
It's hard to watch something 10 years later which held promise when you know the promise wasn't delivered.
Exactly. This is if it was like we just watched it like a week ago, this would be an A++. But it's been tempered by what came after, which is a shame, really, because it is a real shame. Because I remember watching it when it first came out, how exciting it was, how much I enjoyed it, how much the hair stood up on the back of my neck when I heard Tom Baker's voice, things like that. It was just really enjoyable. But sadly, it has been tempered by that, and I can only give it a B-. That's the best I can do. So there you go. There's my score.
There we go. That's a totally different set of reasons, but also just as valid. It's how we feel about it. It's very much impacts how we rate stories. Yes, it does.
Indeed. So how about Golden Age Geek? What do you give it?
I would probably still give it an A.
Okay.
I do think it delivers in a lot of areas, and as I said, there are some faults with it, and I can, pick some faults out with any episode that I rank in A.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it just delivered for me personally.
Awesome.
That's perfectly excellent, and a lot of people are going to agree with that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For my score, I would. Well, I think I agree with Golden Age Geek. I would give it an A. It's not an A plus, which is like the real top dogs like Genesis and so on.
Yeah.
But it's a good, really good, solid story, and yeah, it is undoubtedly ruined by what came after. But like I said, if you try,
I think it's a very interesting set of scores. You've got as older heads come out with B minus, and the younger Panamas come out with A. And I don't know if people can work out what they make about that, but that's fascinating. I find that fascinating.
Well, I'm more of a classic Who fan.
You are. I mean, I'm not saying you're not a classic fan, but
I was introduced to Doctor Who not through New Who. My parents bought it for me on video, and I saw it in the 90s because I was born in 1991, so I saw it like through video releases, and which, by the way, lots of people did. It did not completely die. That's often the narrative now to make news.
Yeah.
But there were lots of fans like me.
It wasn't dead in my house. My son was being force-fed VHS every day.
Yeah, well, I'm like your son in that.
I can keep his carrots out of my video recorder. A little blighter.
I will say though, with the Day of the Doctor, and these may be my last words. The chat's gonna probably, bury me. But
okay, thanks for that. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Here's the thing. This may sound outlandish, but I'm gonna just say
you're gonna dig deep.
It's gonna be very deep. So I feel okay. So I know this isn't exactly 10 years from when New Who launched. Obviously, it was in 2005, and this was 2013. But this kind of feels more like a 10-year anniversary of New Who than a 50th anniversary of Doctor Who as a whole. And if we're being honest, when you look at Power of the Doctor, the episode is absolute garbage, but it actually celebrates classic a lot more.
I would agree with that, except maybe not celebrates.
Yeah,
it catches in. It catches in on classic Who more because the makers were more desperate. They were smug and thought they didn't need classic Who when they made Day of the Doctor. So that we'll give it a couple of references, but by the time they get to Power of the Doctor, they're like, oh fuck, we really need to cash in on classic Who and as much as we can. So yeah, I agree 100% with you on that.
Because my favourite moments in the Power of the Doctor were between the 5th Doctor and Tegan and the 7th Doctor and Ace. I think they are absolutely outstanding moments, and they are so like different and separated from the rest of the Chibnall era. And
I agree.
It felt like it's kind of like, I haven't got to it yet, but it's kind of like with Picard season 3. Everyone who's a Trek fan is just saying, "Oh my god, this is just like outside of everything else we've had," and that's exactly what those moments felt like.
Yeah, I agree, especially the bit with Ace and Sylvester McCoy. That was just so beautiful. That little bit was just
Hello,
so...
I'm Graham. I just happened to be wandering around inside an active volcano. I normally live in Sheffield, but here I am.
Well, that was the problem. You had that
I don't know how I got here. I don't know even what I'm doing. But it's nice to meet you. Oh, you're called Ace. Isn't that lovely? What the...
You ruined it. That little bit there, and you should have left it. Don't bring Graham into it because it was why really?
But it shows you that Chibnall's just a hack.
I'm not going to get drawn into trying to do any kind of script fix for that goddamn awful mess. We're all just glad how it ended, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, it did have quite a surge in the last 10 minutes of viewing, didn't it? So, as everybody tuned in for the end. Yeah, but oh dear me. But no. So there you go. Interesting scores.
Right. Well, we've been having an odyssey tonight, gentlemen.
Yes.
We have just one left to do. Yes. Matt Smith's final episode in the part of Doctor Who, at least to date, because rumors continue to fly around that he may show back up again. Would someone else like to do us a description of Time of the Doctor?
Let's go for Golden Age.
I'm looking for a volunteer.
I reckon I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to let Golden Age Geek start this one.
Well, I do actually remember this story very well, so I should be able to navigate us through this.
Excellent volunteering.
We start the episode with a mysterious message being transmitted across the universe, and the Doctor is, trying to find out what exactly this is, and he now has a temporary sidekick by the name of Handles, a Cyberman head. Very strange, I must admit, but he's noticeable in his own right. So we see the Doctor going from ship to ship, Dalek, Cyberman, again celebrating, because although the 50th was a celebration of Doctor Who, this is an end of an era in its own right. And we see the Doctor, talking to Dalek, Cybermen, that sort of thing. And we then have Clara phoning the Doctor midway through this huge escape scene. And it's Christmas, so she needs him to, get back. She wants to celebrate Christmas with him, and she's also told a few porkies to her family, so she needs him to, live up to those, lies. And we have a nice little moment. Very strange though, because Clara walks into the TARDIS, and the Doctor's not wearing any clothes, and he doesn't wear any clothes for the remainder of the episode. He's using some weird sort of hologram projection thing. I don't really think that works. It's too goofy. It's that whole romantic thing. That's always bothered me. But we find out for the main bulk of the episode that the Church of the Papal Mainframe is heading to Trenzalore before it becomes the apocalyptic wasteland that we see in the name of the Doctor, because that is where the message is being sent from. So the Doctor and Clara go down to investigate, and they find that in the town called Christmas, no one can lie, which, is quite weird. And the Doctor's lucky that no one asked him any sort of questions about, like, is his name, for example.
Yeah.
and again, and again with these Moffat stories, you can always, put holes in the barrel, because you could tie that to the name of the Doctor and say why those effects didn't happen there. I don't remember if the story explains why, but
it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Sorry, actually, there's a plan later. There's a big plot hole later where the Doctor says to one of his guys, "I've got a plan." Then he turns to Clara and goes, "I haven't got a plan," which clearly Stephen Moffat forgot that he'd stuck the stupid and pointless truth sphere in 20 minutes earlier.
By the way, gentlemen, I'm briefly AFK, but I do have my ears on.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry, carry on, Golden Age Geek. I was just
carry on, mate.
And when the Doctor and Clara arrive, they come into contact with, weeping angels, and that's telling us that, of course, not only are the Doctor, Clara, and the Silence coming to this planet, but the whole universe is again, diversion to this location. And again, with what we were talking about before, with how Moffat always uses the same sort of structures and tropes for his finales, with the alternate universes, that type of thing. The same thing that happens in the Pandorica Opens also happens in this, with all the enemies coming to the Doctor to try and get something. So in the Pandorica Opens, it was the Pandorica, and in this one, it's the message. And again, Moffat using the same. So he's literally just used sort of the same generic script, but changed a few things around, substituted characters in, and so forth. So the Doctor and Clara go back up to the ship, and they talk to the leader of the Church of the Papal Mainframe. I can't really remember what her name is, but that's not really relevant anyway, because it's actually revealed to us that she's not actually her. She's one of those Dalek puppet things. Yeah. And so of course they have to get the hell out of there. They go back down, and the Doctor does again. I've only just recognized this now. In the Parting of the Ways, when the Doctor sends Rose back to safety, back home, because he doesn't want her to be in danger, the 11th Doctor does this with Clara as well. And And now that I think about it, it's so strange because when Rose gets sent back, she opens up the doors and she's right there back in the council estate. And that's exactly what happens to Clara as well. It's literally just a copy and paste.
It is literally copy and paste.
Same council estate. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's horrible when you look at it and realise, isn't it? As Matt Pounder says, it's just lazy writing. Oh dear me, madness. But yes, so yeah, it's just, you're right. The more you look at these things, the more you notice. Hold on a minute, I've seen this before. Bit of a deja vu moment, but that's Moffat over and over again. And then we had Chibnall that just rips every other sci-fi trope off the planet. So madness. Any case, carry on, sir. Carry on.
So the Doctor is still on Trenzalore, where he kind of takes on the responsibility of being the sheriff of the town. He's protecting them from all the different aliens and all the different species that are coming to try and, take this planet. And I don't know I don't know how I feel about this story decision, because it's something that ties in heavily with Series 8, but I think it's just because this is all just a compilation. We see, I think it's around 900 years of his life. I think it's around 900 years he spends on this planet, which like is a very long time, and it's just done through a massive montage. And we see the after effects with that with Series 8, but you'd think that all that death, because of course he's surrounded by all these children who are looking up to him as the town's hero, and obviously he's gone through like 10 sets of them, like easily. Yes. So you feel that that would have some sort of emotional impacts on him, but that's not really felt when Clara manages to make her way back to Trenzalore. So again, Moffat trying to put a lot of effects without having any consequences. He does a lot of things in the story that the characters don't really act how they should. He's just doing it for the sort of shock value.
Yeah.
That's something that does harm him quite a bit. But when Clara makes her way back to the planet, the Doctor opens up and we see the crack. And I think it's actually in this episode, we see a flashback to Series 6 in the episode The God Complex, where it's revealed when he opens up that door, he sees the crack as his like biggest fear, which I totally disagree with that. And I'm sure I said that in the stream when we did Series 6.
Yeah,
but
shit.
This idea this idea that the current thing is the greatest enemy of the Doctor, and the fact that the crack itself isn't really much of a threat, it's more of what lies within the crack, which is the Time Lord, so it doesn't make sense on any level.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, if anything, I think if they were to show what was in that room, I mean, I don't think they should have full stop, but if they were, what I would say is that the Doctor should have opened up the doors to that room and he should have saw himself. Because when we find out why he fears the crack so much in the Time Lords, again, it's to do with that guilt of having, ended the Time Lords and the Daleks, and it's expressed multiple times throughout Who that the Doctor is always his own worst enemy because of the things he has to do to protect others. He has to sacrifice himself, but also his morality for other people. So I think what they should have done, if they were going to do that at all, is for him to have seen himself. I think that would have been a good way to do it without ruining any story.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. That would have been much better. Go on.
And we see Clara pleading to the Time Lords to help the Doctor, because at this point he's at the end of his regeneration cycle. So he's going to just eventually wither away. And we have a huge confrontation where the Daleks get their massive warships over Trenzalore. They're confronting the Doctor, and the Time Lords give in, and they give him some more regeneration energy, and it kicks off this new cycle. And I don't really know what everyone on this panel thinks of the sort of switcheroo regeneration where, it's a regeneration before a regeneration. Were people at the time expect? Because of course I saw this after it had aired. Did you think that this was the main regeneration, or did you know that there was something else going on?
I think personally, I think everybody pretty much figured out it was something else that was going to go on. We knew it wasn't going to be the end of the end, but I don't know what else. Anyone else?
I'm a sucker. I thought that was the actual regeneration. Oh God, he's doing one more turn of the do. Right, okay. I mean, I was like that about it. Because why would what the question I ask so often when I especially start to think about New Who from this point onwards is why, and I don't have an answer. For what it's worth, I love the Amy coming down the stairs. Amy Pond coming down the stairs. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm a big softie. I did that. That got me going.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure that was the romance of the first place I ever saw thing, but it was extremely touching. So I was romantic about that. But Gobby's gone away just as about to say, but the regeneration itself, the real regeneration, left me very meh.
It's too quick, isn't it?
I didn't like the immediate thing, moving away from the light show. It didn't really make sense, and I also didn't think it worked all that well dramatically. It was just like, blink, what happened? It didn't really sell itself as a regeneration to change like that. It didn't really sell that a change had happened. It was a bit too disconnected. It was just like replaced, So that didn't work for me. That didn't work, and also I didn't feel Capaldi delivered the lines well. I'm a little hard of hearing. And to me, that line was quite muffled and didn't have the impact of Geronimo, So
I don't like the colour.
Nothing wrong with the lines. I just found the delivery muted, and to me, the words didn't stand out clearly. It didn't land with me. The actual regeneration moment did not land with me. It didn't ruin my anticipation for Capaldi at all. It didn't. The actual moment, I just didn't get the dragging it out to do it that way, and
I agree.
doing it on the tower. But I have obviously other things to say about this story. Tasha Lem is the name Golden Age Geek could not recall. The leader of the Church Papal Mainframe. And, what a waste of space character that was. And bringing the silence work. It just, that whole thing didn't work for me. The explanation of the silence. It just seemed a lot like post-fact explanatory bollocks.
It was.
I believe, I believe that Papalaz observed that when Moffat first wrote Silence in Will Fall, we had no idea what it meant. Well, this is what you get.
Yeah.
At the end result of a journey like that. But at least it was resolved before Matt took his final bow. So I'll give credit to Moffat not leaving his loose ends too loose. So he at least gave himself a clean slate to do something new, which was sensible.
Yeah.
Of course, there are question marks over whether Moffat was preparing to leave the ship at this point. He might have been thinking about it. Again, rumors.
He should have.
Rumors. I think he should have. I think he should have. Yes, I think one Doctor, one showrunner has some merit.
Yeah.
One Doctor, no, two Doctors, one showrunner who's also doing a very big popular other show. So much so that we get less Doctor Who and we don't get Doctor Who consistently every year anymore. No, I didn't like that. And, now TV people seem to complain it's all too much like hard work to have to produce 14 episodes of a series in a year.
Well,
wankers. Never worked a day in their life.
Well, eight is a much more cozy number for us. Same salary, just half the episodes.
Yeah.
Of course, we are living through times right now where Hollywood's having a writer's strike, where writers doing horror have realised that AI can churn out shitty scripts better than theirs.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, I find it full of schadenfreude that this very privileged, protected industry has suddenly found out that their jobs could be replaced by technology too. There's a certain, given how they've been tending to look down on the working man to a certain extent, there's a certain schadenfreude there. But all of this is taking us away from Time of the Doctor. Look, like Christmas. A town called what the fuck?
Yeah, I know.
For one reason and one reason only, this went out on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that was it. A town called Christmas.
Well, that just is rubbish.
Yeah, it is.
The Doctor stuck defending this town for an entire lifespan. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
He couldn't come up with any way out of it in all that time. Nah.
Clearly not. Nah.
Clara suddenly gaining some kind of family.
I don't know
where did that come from?
Yep.
Clara's family live in a tower block. Wow.
Yeah, of course.
Coming. She doesn't seem like a tower block girl.
No.
More of a suburban kind of character, you know?
Yeah.
But no, Clara lives in a tower block, you know. And,
of course.
And it's all about cooking a chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. Really? Well, it's Christmas, I suppose.
Look, to me, this story did the job it was supposed to do. It wrapped up Matt Smith's era, and it gave Matt a suitably emotionally affecting way out.
Yeah.
But did I like it? No, not really.
Eh.
Did I enjoy it?
Not
terribly. You know, it was just on for me. It was just on. It didn't light my world on fire. Well, let's get back to other comments. Because I mean, I think Dobby got the idea. I just struggle with this story. I really do.
Well, personally, I'm just getting my comments on it now. I kind of agree with most of what you guys have said. The humor in it doesn't really land, like making the Doctor and Clara naked when they're not naked. Tasha Lem is also a crap character. I mean, she is. I've always said Stephen Moffat recycled this character 4 times. There's River, there's Irene Adler, there's Tasha Lem, and there's Missy. All the same fucking character. And it got tiresome. It got tiresome enough by the end of River's time. Never mind seeing it recycled 3 more times. But on top of that, I also agree with Golden Age Geek. I don't like him throwing in all these monsters. I think this story would have been better if it had just been the Doctor versus the Daleks. I mean, ironically, for all they overuse the Daleks, like having the Daleks find out that Gallifrey survived, and this story was the Doctor having to team up with, say, another shady organization to try and stop them from getting into where Gallifrey is, and showing you how Gallifrey is vulnerable on the other side, and then the Time Lords maybe give up their last chance to save the Doctor because they know he can save them at a later date. That would have been there's the germ of a good story in there, but it gets completely drowned out with all the silliness, ridiculous plot holes. Yeah, there's no need for the Cybermen. There's no need for any of these things there. And on top of that, as I said, there's other things like, why didn't he just ask the Time Lords to give him those lives earlier? Because it's not as though it was they had to give up anything to give him that. They could have just given him those lives from the start. Also, another thing I really fucking hate. This is always a problem with the Time War. See if one Time Lord regenerating can blow up an entire Dalek fleet. How the fuck did the Time Lords lose? I mean, that's so...
Well, yeah, because all you need to do is just kill one Time Lord. There you go.
Exactly.
Boom!
I mean,
hey, we win.
I hate that in New Who when the TARDIS blows things... Sorry, when the regeneration blows things up. That's so fucking stupid and unnecessary.
Yeah,
it's typical New Who making everything melodramatic.
Yeah.
But having said all of that, I do think this was a better send-off for Matt Smith's Doctor than, I'm sorry to say, John, than End of Time was for David Tennant. I thought End of Time was, his Doctor was so fucking self-pitying and self-indulgent. I wanted to punch him. Whereas in this one, Matt Smith did still at least go out like a hero, you know what I mean?
One thing that must be said is Matt acted his absolute socks off, as he always did.
Yeah.
But, you know, he saved this, as he always did.
He did, absolutely, no question.
Oh,
I will say, actually, one thing as well, I also agree with the silence, that was a dreadful explanation for what they did. I mean, and it actually makes them look incompetent, because in their attempt to stop this war on a crappy wee backwater planet, they blew up the TARDIS.
Yeah.
And in doing so, destroyed every universe. That's how incompetent they were. That'd be like me dropping an atom bomb to stop a bar fight. Seriously.
It's like dropping an atom bomb on a bar fly.
Exactly, yes. I always thought it would have been better if the silence had been Omega's new servants, like the jail guards, because it would have made sense that Omega could have destroyed the TARDIS, because he would have known how to, and he could have done so in a way where it created the cracks to destroy our universe.
We also talked about the prime opportunity missed to bring back Omega in our fixed series 12.
Well, either way, that would have been a better, having it that they're brainwashed priests or whatever the fuck they were was just so crap.
And of course, we must mention that, even though we hate to, because of course the law that was established in this, you can have another regeneration cycle after your last one, which wasn't new because Master had got away with it before and so on. I mean, they dangled a complete new regeneration cycle in front of Master during the 5 Doctors.
Yeah.
So that was not new. That wasn't breaking any previous canon. But then, of course, with Timeless Children just makes this story into complete blancmange.
Yep.
If you try to take them both seriously, everything going on in this story is now total gubbins.
Yeah, well, yeah,
absolutely.
I don't. Fortunately, I'd rather try and hang on to some scraps of canon through this, but I wasn't impressed at the time. I'm not impressed with it 10 years later. The only good thing I've got to say about it is that it's a great final performance by Matt.
Yeah. And
otherwise, I just really don't like this story.
No.
I think it is everything that is worse about Moffat's writing is right here.
Yeah.
In Time of the Doctor.
Yeah.
It was never as bad as this during the Capaldi years, actually.
No, so I disagree when we get to that.
In my view, this was worse.
Death in Heaven and Hellbent, and
we'll talk about next week, hopefully, if we can get through it in time.
They're worse. So that's what I say.
I am keeping an eye on time because we're trying not to let these go over 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we've got about 5
What
minutes.
I'd like us to do is to resolve Time of the Doctor with some scores, and then spend a few minutes summing up Matt Smith's era, summing up Matt's portrayal or persona of the Doctor, and let's finish with that.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, where are we? Time of the Doctor, D.
Ooh, straight to a D.
D.
Yeah. D. I'm going to D. It's D. I didn't enjoy it at all. Golden Age Geek.
I wouldn't say as low as D. I may give it a C. I will just say that I actually think that the 11th Doctor's actual regeneration is probably my favorite. I am very fond of it. I do like the monologue that he gives in it, as many of you have said. His acting chops there.
People stuff. It's a wonderful monologue. I agree with that. Yeah.
I think it was just a good telling of life, and obviously this is a change. The Doctor's still going to be there in the 12th Doctor, but it is a massive change, and he talks about growing up, and particularly me watching out at the time. The
look on his face as he slides the bow tie off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I liked the fact that they had Amy there. Again, I don't like the implications of, the whole romance, that sort of thing, but I thought it was a good way to wrap up that. I don't actually despise the quick snap regeneration thing. I don't particularly mind that, because I do have sort of disdain for the massive explosive, visual effects regeneration. So I did like a quick sort of snap, gone, here's 12. So yeah, I didn't mind that. I will say that with when he does have his big explodey regeneration that turns out to be like a nuke. I do like the imagery of him sort of raising his hands up to the 12 on the clock and it just blows up. Not because I think that canonically that it's a good thing for the Time Lords, but I think it's just very poetic if you look at it as an image. Him raising his hands up to the 12 and it explodes the entire clock, because again, this is a new cycle. And I thought I'd just point that out.
For good or ill, this was it. 11's time was done.
Yeah.
Have we got Burnshaw score yet?
No, not yet. No, we
haven't.
haven't.
Oh, well, I've already said what I think about it, so I'll just say, not a very well written story. Great Matt Smith performance, some nice scenes, germ of a good idea in there, but really, I'd give it about a C-, not as harsh as a D, but not a good one either.
Well, look, on the whole, I think we've charted the course across the Doctor's saga quite well. B-A-B-D was my course, but I think we've been pretty fair to it all overall.
Yeah,
so, let's talk about 11 and the character's legacy and how much we miss him and all of that sort of stuff. Who wants to say something about 11?
I'll start. I'll just say that I think the 11th Doctor is by far and away the best of the New Who lot. He's the only one, to be honest, that I think had a pretty good solid era. I mean, I know there was some shit there, but overall, it always felt like a more legit attempt to carry on.
We found a lot of good stuff looking over all of his episodes.
Yeah, we have indeed.
Matt just understood it. He understood it. He played it as an alien eccentric rather than a tortured, angel or Xena clone. And he looked the part more. He was more kind of odd looking, and he dressed. One thing I want to say, I think that he understood it because he actually went back and watched it. I don't think David Tennant. I think David Tennant's one of his fans. He loved it growing up, but hasn't returned to it in years. So I think he did it from vague memories. Same with Capaldi. Whereas Matt Smith, I think, is the only one that actually went back and watched the tapes thoroughly.
Matt has this wonderful big brow and big chin, which makes him immediately distinctive. And also, he was a stringy bean at the time. He was doing.
Yeah, he was.
Now he's doing House of Dragon. He's rather more buff than I've ever seen him before at the moment. But it probably means he's serious about getting at one of his Hollywood movies with his name on it. Well, one that worth having his name on it. So, what about you, Golden Age Geek? I mean, I get the sense that for 11 was very much your Doctor for at least for a while.
Well, I as I say, I did start watching Doctor Who in around 2014, but I did watch New Who from the start, so I did go back to series 1 with Eccleston and then watched it all the way up there. It's not like I started with Matt Smith or Capaldi or anything. I did go back to Eccleston. So but yeah, 11th Doctor is my favorite Doctor, I would say. Peter Capaldi's Doctor is very close up there in my rankings, but 11 just encapsulates everything I would imagine the Doctor to be. If he actually existed, I would want to go traveling with this Doctor probably more than any other. I love his charm.
Wow.
Yeah. I love his charm, his wit. I love the fairy tale nature of his era. It does feel, the sci-fi and the magic coming together. But again, I understand that the Doctor isn't this, like a traditional hero. He isn't like a hero. He doesn't just go in and just save everyone. There's a lot of complexity to the character. And when the 11th Doctor does find himself in those troubling moments, you do see the anger come out. So I feel as if this Doctor is a very complete incarnation, because other ones will highly emphasize the fun and then others will emphasize the darkness, whereas I think he's a good blend and mix of everything. We do see a lot of range in Matt's performance.
Definitely a madman in a box.
Yes,
absolutely.
Well said, Archie Colin. Well said.
So one thing about Matt as well, I've said this before, but he is without doubt the most popular of the new Doctors among classic era fans. Go in any classic era form, and like they'll mostly hate New Who, but they'll all say, "Yeah, Matt was really good." So I think he was very popular with the new fans. So I think in many ways he kind of combined the best of New Who and Old Who, and that he was quite young and dashing for the new Who fans. He was a bit more tortured, but he also was very professorial and grandfatherly despite his young age, and alien for more traditional fans. So yeah, I think you could make an argument he's the most accessible Doctor, which is also why he probably became the most famous around the world after Tom Baker.
Yeah,
I think that's all wonderfully said. Well, Matt broke the show out with season 5 to regain international status it hadn't had since Tom Baker was the Doctor. So, I think it was Matt who actually cemented New Who as just as good as classic Who.
Yes, definitely.
And until Matt's era, that hadn't really been achieved. That hadn't fully been achieved.
No.
So I think he had the great grace to be the Doctor at a time when it was very good to be the Doctor.
Yeah.
Especially, being the Doctor for the 50th.
Yeah.
So I think Matt was really in a great place in his life, in his career. I think he had a fantastic run. And I think he never failed to grab it with both hands. He never took the show or the fans for granted.
No.
And he worked hard to really deliver a convincing characterization.
Yeah.
And Matt's ability to play old young was
brilliant.
Simply gobsmacking.
It was.
It
really was.
At the conclusion to series 5, the Big Bang.
Yeah.
How he could do that, how he could give that impression of a truly ancient being sacrificing himself for all of us.
Yeah.
And he could convey that. That was spine chilling. It not in a bad way. It was goosebumpy in a tremendously good way. It was like, this guy is totally hitting it off the marks of the character. And to think he gave that performance before anyone has seen him in a moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Matt's professionalism, his competence, his talent, and his devotion to the part, never in question.
No, never in question.
So, I could only look at his Doctor as a tremendous success.
I agree. The only thing
I often, to be, and in the greater picture of things, a little unfairly overshadowed by David Tennant's performance.
Well, not internationally. He's bigger than David Tennant, at least internationally.
Yes. Well, yes and no, he was, but now the show is so much shrunken internationally.
Yeah. True.
So that's all still to play for with the 60th and season 14.
Yeah.
And of course, a little burst of realism is to point out that Disney Plus is now a company only losing $100 million a month.
Have you seen how many subscribers it's just lost?
Well, they've lost 4,000, but they were also predicted to pick up 4,000, so they're actually down 8,000. And
justice for Gina Carano.
Sorry, did I say 8,000? I don't mean 8,000. Jesus, I mean 8 million.
8 million.
They 8 million less subscribers when the market said they should have 1 year ago.
Yeah.
They've still got 150 million odd subscribers. I mean, it's not a small channel. But the problem for Disney Plus is that a lot of those are free trial subscriptions, and the real paying subscriptions are hanging around, and they're just not making any money out of Disney Plus. So all the money that they're spending, on making shows, on funding Doctor Who, on giving Doctor Who a platform, all of that investment that is going on here is in the background. The streaming industry is extremely troubled right now.
Yep, absolutely.
Extremely troubled. So what relevance that has per se, I don't know, except that I want people to keep a realistic impression in their heads. But
I think
this may not be the salvation of the show's rating issues.
Matt Smith is as big as this, as New Who is ever going to be. I'd say it peaked with Matt. Like, the only time Doctor Who's going to be that popular again is after another hiatus with a totally different team, and possibly a different continuity. I mean, I could be wrong, but I can't see New Who reaching that level again.
It's Nakuti's time in the spotlight coming up. And we'll see.
There's so much bad feeling though.
I'm not going to prejudge him, and I'm going to see what he delivers.
I agree. I won't be watching Neil Patrick Harris because he's a cunt. But
yes. I know you have very strong feelings in that. Area.
Yes, but I mean, Ncuti Gatwa. It's not even so much that I think he's bad or anything like that, but I just think there's a lot of bad feeling. I think that the Jodie era has soured people on it, whereas when Matt Smith took over, no one was really soured on it. I mean, even if you didn't like David Tennant, it didn't make you think, "Oh God, that's it. I don't care what happens."
Oh, the opposite, and a lot of trust was extended to Matt, and he overwhelmingly paid back that trust.
He did.
I mean, I think that complaints about Matt's Doctor was significantly less than complaints about Tennant.
Yeah.
So
one last thing that I want to say about Matt was just that I think he could have gone on longer. I mean, in hindsight, it's just as well he didn't. But if the scripts had been good, I think he could have done 7 years because he really was as good as that.
Well, of course, both Matt and Peter are on the record of saying in their early time after getting the part, they wanted to beat Tom Baker's record, but for one reason or another, that did not happen.
Moffat, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'll let you guys go now.
Colin, have you said all you want to say for Matt?
Yeah, I love his dedication to the role as well. Yeah, because I remember I'll just quickly say this. When he was doing the promotion for Morbius, he was asked by one of the interviewers, "Would you rather do a Morbius sequel or do Doctor Who?" And before the question was even asked, he just went, "Doctor Who, Doctor Who."
Yeah, well, I mean, Matt had every reason not to be happy about how that film turned out.
Yeah, well,
what a Marvel mess.
Yes, it certainly was.
Gobby, you've said what you want to say about Matt's Doctor.
Matt, the thing is, you've all covered it for me. Matt is a brilliant actor. He was sublime. He was awesome as the Doctor. What else can I add? I think the three of you have pretty much summed it up. That he was.
Well, I want to thank the three of you for helping me to get these thoughts out and talk through all of this, and we've had a wonderful time talking through Matt's era. And to chat, and chat has been very busy tonight. We wanted to drive through this a bit, so we haven't given you quite as much time as we otherwise might have done. We knew it was a lot here to talk.
Yeah, there was a lot to talk.
But together, we will all collectively take a deep breath and be back next week.
Yes, absolutely.
Series 8.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. Any case, let's go.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Till then,
thank you. See you later.
Another great stream. Goodbye, everyone.
Another one. Goodbye, everybody, and
bye.
Next week. Bye-bye.